Chapter 674. 10,000 Blood God Technique. 10,000 Movement Skill. Unlike the 10,000 Blood God Technique, which focused on the cultivation of blood, this 10,000 movement skill did not place much importance on blood, although it was related to the 10,000 Blood God Technique. This way, Tianyang found it much easier to accept. If this 10,000 movement skill required him to turn into a pool of blood and move around, no matter how strong his mentality was, he would not want to cultivate it. The 10,000 movement skill is called 10,000 movement skill. In fact, it can be cultivated by mastering the mystery of a great Tao. This great Tao is the Tao of speed. If I succeed in comprehending it, then not only will my movement speed increase, but even my attack speed will also increase greatly. Tianyang muttered to himself. Speed was extremely important to a cultivator. Without speed, even the most powerful and terrifying attack would be easily dodged by the opponent. Tianyang's speed was already considered good. However, compared to those geniuses who had comprehended the Tao of speed, it was still not enough. After all, his cultivation of Sword Tao, Alchemy Tao, and Array Tao was already insufficient for him to use his brain. If he cultivated the Tao of speed, he would be overdrawing his soul. However, that was in his previous life. Now, Tianyang's Sword Tao had already broken through to the extreme realm. He only lacked the accumulation of energy. In Alchemy Tao, with the 10,000 Pill Treasure Book and a Xianming Fire Cauldron, Tianyang's Alchemy Tao had also surpassed his previous life. Although there was no change in Array Tao, he was still the best in Sky Continent. In other words, Tianyang now had the strength to cultivate the Tao of speed. If I master the Tao of speed, I'm afraid my air step secret skill will also be improved. Among the 10,000 movement skill, there's a cultivation method of speed Tao. This matter should not be delayed. Tianyang muttered to himself. Then, he closed his eyes and quietly digested the large amount of information that had entered his mind. As for the others, they also chose the martial skills that they could cultivate and began to cultivate. Tianyang had not obtained the inheritance of the earthly emperor, so he naturally could not move the spiritual herbal garden. However, the demon emperor's corpse was like a dagger hanging over their hearts, so they could not cultivate for too long. 1 week later, a gust of wind blew through the spiritual herbal garden. Sanguinati and the Soul Infant Fruit Tree were shocked as they looked at Tianyang, who was shuttling back and forth in the spiritual herbal garden. However, they were unable to find any trace of him. This, my lord's talent, is indeed terrifying, Sanguinati said in shock. He had seen Tianyang practice the myriad Tao movement technique. At that time, he had thought that a low-grade heaven-ranked movement technique was not that easy to practice. With only a week's time, Tianyang must be doing useless work. However, reality slapped him hard in the face. Looking at the current Tianyang, if one were to use their soul fire to observe him, they wouldn't even be able to find his afterimages. Even if they used their soul force, they would only be able to capture a trace of him at most. However, Tianyang had already walked past them. In other words, even if Sanguinati had recovered his soul force to the second level of heavenly completion realm, he still wouldn't be able to locate Tianyang. That's right. During this week, Tianyang had also fulfilled his promise. He had plucked a few silver soul infant fruits from a soul infant fruit tree and gave them to Sanguinati. It wasn't that Tianyang was stingy. It was just that the golden soul infant fruit had ripened endlessly. Moreover, there was almost no time limit for it to ripen. The golden soul infant fruit that the soul infant fruit tree had borne was only a few decades away from reaching the 100,000-year cultivation level. The difference between a 100,000-year spiritual herb and a 99,000-year spiritual herb was like heaven and earth. Even if Sanguinati wanted to recover his strength, he knew the pros and cons of doing so. After consuming a few silver soul infant fruits, the effect was not bad. He had already recovered to the second level of heavenly completion realm. In other words, even if Tianyang didn't activate his soul force and didn't use the heaven-devouring secret skill, with the help of Sanguinati, he could still go against the martial Holy Land. The new master's talent is even more terrifying than the old master's. The sole infant fruit tree swayed its branches and exclaimed in admiration. In just a week, he had cultivated the low-grade heaven-class movement technique to the peak of the first stage. In other words, it was also known as the complete small success stage. Tianyang's talent in martial arts was simply terrifying. However, if they knew that Tianyang's meridians were naturally terminated meridians and that Tianyang's martial spirit was only a low-grade yellow-class martial spirit at the beginning, they wouldn't think so anymore. Sanguinati, watch out for my sword. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly shouted. His figure was like a soul that was drifting in the air. His speed was instantly raised to a terrifying level. Even if Sanguinati fully activated his soul force, he still couldn't sense it. Yes, Sanguinati panicked for a moment at the beginning. However, in the next moment, he took out his middle-grade spiritual longsword. No matter how fast Tianyang was, he still had to attack him. If he attacked him, his speed would definitely be reduced. Instead of wasting his soul force to search for Tianyang's trace, it would be better to deal with the situation by remaining unchanged. It had to be said that Sanguinati was after all an emperor who achieved his Tao through killing. Although his strength wasn't as strong as Tianyang's, his battle experience was on par with Tianyang's. However, swoosh, boom, an extremely swift and fierce ray of light suddenly shot forward explosively. The Blood Sword Emperor's expression changed drastically, and he was just about to draw his sword to block it. However, the ray of light had already brushed past his face. If Sanguinati had a face, it would have been disfigured by now. So fast, Sanguinati's soul fire flickered. His face was extremely solemn as he held the long sword in his hand tightly. In the next moment, boom, 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 boom. In an instant, 4 rays of light shot out explosively and shot towards the Blood Sword Emperor. Found. No, I can't react in time. Sanguinati was about to laugh out loud, but he was shocked to find that his soul force had indeed sensed the existence of these sword lights. However, the moment he sensed them, these sword lights had already brushed past his face, the gap between his ribs, the top of his head, and between his legs. Even if Sanguinati didn't have that thing, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his crotch. Your reaction speed is not bad. Again, Tianyang's voice seemed to come from all directions. Hearing this, Sanguinati's face changed drastically. He hurriedly threw away the sword in his hand and raised his hand to beg for mercy. I don't want to fight anymore. The Sword Emperor's talent is really rare in the world. I can't even react in time. How can I fight? Sanguinati's words were indeed sincere. After all, since the sword light could pass through the gap between his ribs, it could definitely pass through his head. With such speed, he was afraid that he would be finished before he could release his soul force at the second level of the Heaven Ascension realm. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled. His figure slowed down, and he casually threw away the wooden sword in his hand. Seeing this, the spectators all opened their eyes wide. Wooden sword? Not the void sword embryo. Even Sanguinati's face was full of shock. Wooden sword? Just the wooden sword was enough to force him to this extent? If he used the void sword embryo, wouldn't he be able to easily kill the 9th level of the Sea of Soul Realm? Not bad. Grasping a trace of the mystery of the speed, Tao allowed my strength to improve so much. Now it's getting late. Sanguinati, lead the way. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Sanguinati stared blankly for a moment, his face turning serious. Yes. Chapter 675. Walking in the Earthly Emperor's Inheritance. Tianyang and his group all had a solemn look on their faces. Tianyang had previously concealed the matter of the Demon Emperor's corpse from everyone. Now that they were about to go, naturally, he could no longer hide it. After all, they were now going to the Demon Emperor's corpse. Sanguinati, are you sure it's the Demon Emperor's corpse? The Demon Emperor? Long Taiji followed behind Sanguinati with a solemn expression. The Demon Emperor's corpse was no ordinary thing. Tianyang had killed Enlai in the Dragon Necropolis and Enpa in the Sky Tyrant Blade Emperor's tomb. They were both outstanding among the Demon Kings, but they were still Demon Kings. The real demon emperor was an existence comparable to the great emperors of Heaven Continent. Sanguinati should be the most familiar with the existence of that level of existence. I'm not sure, but the only thing that could destroy my mind in an instant was the effect of the surrounding demonic chi. Other than the demon emperor, I can't think of anything else. Sanguinati shook his head, and a look of horror flashed in his soul fire. 10,000 years ago, the battle that almost killed him had terrified him to the extreme. He had escaped the great destruction of civilization, but the demon emperor's corpse almost caused him to fall here. If Tianyang hadn't shown mercy, Sanguinati would have turned into ashes long ago. Just the demonic chi. Hearing this, Long Taiji's eyes suddenly widened. Just the demonic chi was enough to kill the emperor from 10,000 years ago. He knew that Tianyang was the Tianji Sword Emperor, but even Tianyang might not be able to do this. He had sparred with Sanguinati several times, so he had a good understanding of Sanguinati's strength. To say that Sanguinati was comparable to the lord of a martial arts holy land was already being modest. Reaching Heaven Realm LV2, he would be able to perform the 7th strike of the 7 deadly sword technique. At that time, with the 7 deadly strikes stacked together, it would be as easy as blowing off dust to slaughter the entire northern wilderness region. It would not be difficult to deal with the lord of the martial arts holy land. Yet, such an existence was actually killed by the demonic aura emitted by a corpse. Did the demon emperor have to be so strong? The real demon emperor is far stronger than this. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly spoke. His eyes were filled with fear. He had fought with the demon emperor in his previous life. He was very clear about the strength of the demon emperor. We're here. Just as Tianyang was thinking about countermeasures, the Sanguinati suddenly stopped and stood outside a huge, towering hall. Everyone stopped as well. Their hearts were heavy. Tianyang summoned the Tianyuan Tower. Long Taiji, Ao Ling, Yu Jianshun, and Yu Han, you guys go in. Hearing this, everyone stared blankly for a moment before nodding. Only Ling Yuhan remained behind. My 9-tailed lunar fox, coupled with a 9-nether saint body, can even block Sanguinati for a while. With me around, it will be much easier to attack or dodge. Ling Yuhan said seriously. Hearing that, Tianyang could only nod. After the bloodline awakening, Ling Yuhan's role in the team was no less than Long Taiji's. In fact, she was even stronger. Tianyang had no reason to chase her back. Even so, we have to be careful, Tianyang said solemnly. Then, he raised his head and looked at the hall. The hall was extremely tall. It was even several times taller than the Tianyuan Tower. Looking at it, it was at least 10,000 feet high. In the Dragon Necropolis, the 1,000-feet-long dragon coffin had shocked them. That was only the length. Now, this huge hall was 10 times the length of the 1,000-feet-long dragon coffin, and it was the height. The length was probably more than 100 miles. It was as if the largest creature in history was living in it. Rows upon rows of pavilions and towers were lined up behind the large hall. However, Sky Sun and the Bloodsword ruler didn't really care. Their eyes were fixed on the top of the hall. Earthly Emperor Hall. The hall outside is also called Earthly Emperor Hall. Tianyang's voice was low and solemn. When he saw the 3 words, the heavenly sword in his soul, C shook violently. After evolving into a heaven-rank martial soul, the heavenly sword was extremely sensitive to demonic chi. However, even if the demonic chi emitted by Enlai and Enpa increased by 10 times, it would not be 1% of what it was now. I guess the Earthly Emperor Hall outside is just a bluff. This Earthly Emperor Hall is the real Earthly Emperor Hall, Tianyang said. In his heart, he was thinking that the Demon Emperor was not someone to be trifled with. If there were any unforeseen circumstances, he must immediately activate the Divine Dragon King's sword, the Divine Dragon Body, and the heaven-devouring secret skill. Let's not dwell on whether it is real or not. Now let's go in first. Tianyang suddenly laughed. Then he walked forward and kicked out. On the Divine Dragon's dragon core, 108 Divine Dragon runes burst out with terrifying xinguang. The Divine Dragon's dragon force was released. In the next moment, the door was kicked to pieces. Boom! Fragments flew all over the sky and pierced into the ground. However, Tianyang noticed that these fragments, without exception, were all back facing inside. Interesting. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up slightly. In the next moment, he strode forward and walked in. As for Sanguinati, although he was extremely frightened, he also walked in. In the main hall, it was dark. The billowing demonic chi rushed out without any concealment. Boom! The demonic chi rushed over like a giant dragon. Tianyang frowned slightly. The heavenly sword instantly condensed into a 9-colored long sword and slashed out. Boom! The demonic chi giant dragon was instantly slashed into nothingness by the sword. The demonic chi itself was devoured by the heavenly sword. However, Tianyang's gaze remained unchanged. He looked at the deepest part of the demonic chi. Boom! 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 In an instant, a few giant demonic chi black dragons rushed out. They were like real dragons and let out earth-shattering roars. Roar! Tianyang's expression did not change. The heavenly sword in his hand shone with a dazzling light. He took a deep breath, and endless xinguang erupted from his eyes. A tremendous devouring force burst out from his body. So much demonic chi, it's simply a gift from the heavens. Martial soul talent, devour heaven. Tianyang laughed loudly. In the next moment, the devouring power erupted. The few demonic chi black dragons that rushed out instantly exploded into their original forms and poured into the heavenly sword. The surrounding demonic chi was actually forcibly torn apart by the devouring power and devoured by the heavenly sword. Tianyang and his heavenly sword were like a whirlpool in the sea, crazily absorbing the surrounding demonic chi. Then, Tianyang smiled coldly, and the aura on his body instantly soared. 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm. 8th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak 8th level of Sea of Soul Realm. 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. Peak 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. In a short dozen seconds, Tianyang's aura had soared to such an extent, just a little bit more, and he could step into the ranks of half-step heavenly completion realm. Now you can come out. It seems that the demonic chi here is not uncontrollable, Tianyang said indifferently. Then the annihilating heavenly flame burned. The entire hall was as bright as day. Hee. At this moment, in the deepest part of the Earth Emperor Hall, a huge ice coffin suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a crack opened, and a wisp of black smoke flowed out. A Sea of Soul Realm human can actually come here. Chapter 676. The Demon Emperor's corpse had awakened. Upon seeing this, Sanguinati's complexion changed greatly, and his soul fire started to tremble. He wouldn't forget that it was the Demon Emperor's corpse that had severely injured his soul and turned him into a madman who only knew how to kill. Although Tianyang had rescued him from the abyss of suffering, Sanguinati was still terrified to the extreme when he saw the Demon Emperor's corpse. Upon seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly, somewhat displeased. This Sanguinati was a bit too cowardly. However, this wasn't what he needed to consider right now. Human race's heaven's pride has the power to exterminate demons. Not bad, not bad. It seems that after so many years, a few extraordinary characters have appeared in the Tianshao Great World. The Demon Emperor had a feminine and handsome face. He looked very handsome, and between his eyebrows, there was an evil aura. Anyone who saw this face, without exception, would be immersed in it. His entire face was like a sculpture meticulously carved by the world's most skilled craftsmen. It could be said to be perfect. Moreover, that slender body was tall, but didn't appear too sturdy or weak. Even in death, it couldn't conceal the Demon Emperor's elegance, worthy of being the leader of invading great worlds. These Demon Emperors all have a showy appearance. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the Demon Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Tianyang. From what you've said, You've seen our race? Not only have I seen them, but I've also killed a few. Tianyang grinned, revealing his pure white teeth, and used the sky-devouring secret technique. Because the surrounding demon emperor's demonic qi was too pure and enormous, his Zhen Yuan, which had been raised to peak 9th layer sea of Soul Realm, was slowly released. Thanks to the demon emperor's demonic qi, the sky firmament sword could devour to its heart's content. If it were elsewhere, even if the sky-devouring secret technique was used to the limit, it would be a problem for Tianyang's cultivation to reach peak 8th layer sea of Soul Realm. However, my heavenly demon race is a noble race. You lowly ants, who are like pigs and dogs, actually dare to speak nonsense? You even devoured my demon emperor's demonic qi to improve yourself. You violated my dignity, kid die. The demon emperor's face darkened. He raised his right hand and directly punched out. Thousand demon god fist. The demon emperor coldly shouted, Demon emperor's cheese bodies. The demon emperor's body. The demon's body. In the next moment, it directly pierced the void and charged Tianyang. Tianyang smiled faintly and swung the great void sword embryo in his hand. Boom! The 1,000 demon god fist, which could almost explode space, was instantly chopped into fine powder by Tianyang's casual sword, dissipating between heaven and earth. Seeing this, the demon emperor's face changed slightly. He looked at Tianyang with great fear, and the demonic qi around his body gradually dissipated. Although Luo Yinyang's punch had been a casual strike, the Sky Sun Sword had also been a casual strike. It was also a casual blow, but Tianyang easily caught and broke it, which made the demon emperor feel a trace of undeserved fear. At this moment, he was still in a state of being suppressed by the earthly emperor, so there was no way for him to exert his strength. However, human race's genius. Do you know why the earthly emperor sealed me in the earthly emperor palace instead of killing me directly? The demon emperor suddenly laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He had not lived for hundreds of years in vain. He could see what the demon emperor was planning with a glance. However, Tianyang was somewhat interested in this. I don't know, but even if you tell me, I may not want to know, Tianyang said lightly. Hearing this, the demon emperor's face suddenly stiffened, and then he laughed, because I have something that the earthly emperor dreamed of, but could not get. Because I'm the only one who can control that thing, and only the person I choose can inherit it. The demon emperor laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. What thing? At that time, the earthly emperor was almost standing at the top of the Tianshao Great World, only one step away from the realm of Wuzun. The demon emperor was at this level. Judging from the fact that he was suppressed by the earthly emperor, it seemed that he was inferior to the earthly emperor. However, he had something that the earthly emperor dreamed of. You know that in this Tianshao Great World, there are ordinary weapons, precious weapons, and spiritual weapons. However, do you know what is above the spiritual weapons? The demon emperor smiled seductively. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. The all-heaven sword that he encountered in Sword Star City was in existence above the spiritual weapons. Later, the Great Void Sword embryo that he obtained in the Great Void Secret Realm was also a prototype above the spiritual weapons. And the Myriad Pill Bible seemed to have some aura that came from the existence above the spiritual weapons. Tianyang was indeed very interested in the existence above the spiritual weapons. However, that level was beyond the level of this world. Tianyang only knew bits and pieces of it. Seeing the change in Tianyang's expression, the demon emperor suddenly sneered in his heart. He came from the devil world and had seen countless treasures. The knowledge and secrets he knew were naturally much more than these natives of this world. So what if you are strong? In terms of knowledge, you are still far inferior to me. Above the heaven-reaching realm is the Wuzun realm, and above the Wuzun realm is the Saint realm. Above the spiritual weapons are the holy weapons. I have a semi-holy weapon in my hand. Even a powerful figure like Wuzun would go crazy for it. The demon emperor laughed loudly. The next moment, with a flip of his wrist, An armor that released a powerful and terrifying aura appeared in his hand. The armor was surrounded by precious light. Countless mysterious runes were engraved on it. On the back, there was even a powerful defensive killing formation. Although he could not see the material, Tianyang was sure that it was definitely much stronger than the metals of the Tianshao Great World. Moreover, a mysterious aura slowly flowed out with the armor. Tianyang sensed it and suddenly felt as if he had touched a barrier. This semi-holy weapon armor was indeed extraordinary. What do you think? I didn't lie to you, did I? As long as you break this coffin, then I can be revived. I swear by the great oath of the heart demon. As long as you break my imprisonment, I will give you this semi-holy weapon armor. The demon emperor said painfully. Hearing this, Tianyang's face changed slightly. Sanguinati's face showed a trace of shock and desire. A semi-holy weapon was superior to a spiritual weapon. Who didn't want it? That's right. At this moment, the space beside them suddenly twisted. A tall, middle-aged man came out and looked at the demon emperor with an extremely cold face. There is indeed something on this monster of the devil clan, the tall, middle-aged man said. Hearing this, the demon emperor's face changed. He looked at the tall, middle-aged man and said, Emperor of Earth, why are you still alive? Emperor of Earth. Hearing this, Sanguinati suddenly opened his eyes wide. Then, Emperor of Earth smiled coldly. If you can live, why can't I live? Then, Emperor of Earth looked at Tianyang and said, I didn't expect that you could do what I couldn't do. You can even force this guy to swear by the great oath of the heart demon. You just need to attack. After he gives you the half-saint battle armor, I will attack and kill this monster of the devil clan. Emperor of Earth smiled. Hearing this, the demon emperor's face suddenly became ugly. He cursed, Emperor of Earth, you are cunning and shameless. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly smiled. One person playing two roles. Aren't you afraid of schizophrenia? Hearing this, the demon emperor's face suddenly froze. Sanguinati, next to him, was confused. You really think I have never seen a semi-holy weapon? Tianyang smiled slightly. The next moment, he slashed out with his sword. Boom! Chapter 677. Boom! The body of the Emperor of Earth instantly turned into fragments that filled the sky. In the Sanguinati's disbelief and the demon emperor's gloomy eyes, Tianyang smiled faintly. You want to trick me with this kind of trick? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the demon emperor's face suddenly became gloomy to the extreme. The fact was already very obvious. If the real Emperor of Earth appeared, Tianyang's sword, not to mention that he didn't use any strength, even if he used 50% of his strength, it would still be impossible to injure him like this. If it really reached the point where even a bit of Tianyang's strength could not be blocked, the Emperor of Earth would not have lived until now. In other words, under Tianyang's attack, all of the Demon Emperor's plots and tricks were all exposed. Damn human! The Demon Emperor's face was gloomy to the extreme. He originally thought that Tianyang would fall into his trap. After all, a treasure like a semi-holy tool, even in the ancient Tianshao Great World, did not have it. In ancient times, heaven and earth had just been created, and the heavenly Tao was far from being as perfect as it was now. The suppression of various cultivators was also not as strong as it was now. In ancient times, the red dragon Wuzun could even break through to Wuzun in the Tianshao Great World. But later, the primordial emperor of Shirshu needed to pass the heavenly tribulation to become Wuzun in another world. This world did not allow Wuzun to appear, and neither did it allow the appearance of a holy tool. The demon emperor thought that he would definitely trick Tianyang into helping him break the restriction by taking out the semi-holy tool armor. But he didn't expect that. You really think I haven't seen a holy tool before? This sentence still echoed in the demon emperor's ears. Originally, the demon emperor wanted to wait until Tianyang broke the barrier and immediately kill him. In this way, the great vow of the heart demon would not be valid without the object of the vow. Unfortunately, Tianyang's sword had destroyed all of this. Now, what other little tricks do you have? Use all of them. Tianyong stood with his hands behind his back and smiled faintly. The ridicule and contempt in his words were like a sharp blade that directly stabbed the Demon Emperor's heart. The Demon Emperor's face suddenly became gloomy to the extreme. Humph. Even if I don't have a plan, it's still easy for me to suppress a human ant like you. Lowly race, go to hell. The Devil Emperor roared, and in the next moment, a soul force rushed out. The Devil Emperor roared, and the Devil Emperor's aura in the surroundings instantly condensed into a giant Devil Emperor's body. Body of Demon God. The Demon Emperor's chi, the Demon's chi, and the next moment he punched. Demon crack. With a punch, demonic chi surged and turned into a huge fist that almost shattered the entire earthly imperial palace. The surrounding space was destroyed by the aftermath of the demon's crack, and cracks were still visible in the distance. Tianyong's face darkened, and the great void sword embryo flew out from his hand. Art of sword manipulation, sword art idealism. Tianyong snorted coldly and unleashed his surging soul power. The great void sword embryo seemed to have grown eyes as it carried the unique demon-destroying power of the sky, firmament sword, towards the demon god's 100-crack fist. The demon god's crack was a powerful martial skill of the demon clan. In terms of grade, it was at least a heaven-class lower grade. However, the art of sword manipulation was also a powerful and terrifying secret skill, especially when it had reached Tianyong's level. Boom, 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 boom. Beams of sword radiance and fist print collided with each other, and there was a burst of dazzling light that shook the heavens and the earth. Although the Earth Emperor Palace was still as stable as Mount Tai, the clouds in the sky had been shattered by the aftermath, and the pressure from the battle had spread throughout the entire Earth Emperor's inheritance. This is, after finding the treasure of the Demon Clan and the Demon Emperor's sword, King Chi Yao's expression changed greatly. He raised his head and looked in the direction of the Earthly Emperor Palace. There are almighties fighting there. Now, the Demon Emperor's sword is in our hands. The inheritance of the earthly sovereign was meaningless, and there was a battle between two peerless almighties. It was not wise to stay here for long. Let's go. King Chi Yao roared in panic. As a member of the Howling Sky Nine-Headed Hound clan, his ears and senses were far superior to ordinary people. Even though they were a few hundred kilometers away, King Chi Yao was still able to sense the monstrous devil chi. The emergence of the demon race was definitely not a good thing. Yes, the group of demons didn't know why King Chi Yao was in such a hurry, but they still nodded and didn't dare to stop here. The demon race's innate sense of danger also told them that this place was dangerous. On the other side, what kind of fluctuation is this? You can't go any further. A rough-looking man suddenly stopped. His peak level 7 Sea of Souls realm aura seemed to have been strangled by something, making it difficult for him to even breathe. He was only a few dozen miles away from the Earth Imperial Palace. He sensed that the fluctuation from the battle between the two was the most intense. That pressure almost suffocated him. I thought there would be some treasure in the depths of the inheritance. Now, it's already good that I'm still alive. I didn't expect that I, the young master of the divine sect, would be scared away, the rough-looking man muttered. However, at this moment, boom! The heavenly suns and the Devil Emperor attacked again. Violent attacks collided with each other, and the pressure was once again unleashed. In an instant, the rough-looking man's face turned green. So be it. My life is more important. Then, the rough-looking man hurriedly turned around and ran away as if he was flying, afraid that he would be affected by this battle. In other places, everyone was the same. The battle between Tianyong and the Demon Emperor was really too intense. So much so that no matter how weak they were, they could still sense it. Although there were still countless treasures in the Earth Emperor's inheritance that had not been obtained, everyone knew that if they stayed any longer, they might not be able to get the treasures, but their lives would be lost. Suddenly, the entire Earthly Emperor's inheritance became an empty place in just a short 15 minutes. And in the Earth Imperial Palace, bang, 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 Tianyang and the Demon Emperor's battle was still ongoing. However, Tianyang's physical strength was somewhat exhausted at this moment. Although the boundless spiritual ocean was powerful, it did not increase along with the sky-devouring secret technique. Tianyang's Zhen Yuan had indeed increased to peak level 9C of Soul's Realm. However, the boundless spiritual ocean was still at level 5C of Soul's Realm. In order to fight with the Demon Emperor, Tianyang had erupted with his full strength in almost every move. Now, he was suppressing the Demon Emperor, but his Zhen Yuan was also about to be exhausted. Haha! As expected of the human race's heaven's pride, the battle strength that was forcefully raised can actually last for so long. The Demon Emperor's sensing ability was not weak, so he naturally sensed Tianyang's situation. His face, which had originally appeared somewhat sullen due to being suppressed, instantly turned savage. If you were born in the demon race, you might even become a demon saint-level existence in the future. But now, you're born in an aboriginal world, so you can only die. The Demon Emperor laughed heartily. In the next moment, billowing devil chi erupted. So far, the strongest move had been released. Demon Emperor's Heaven-Sealing Seal. A huge seal condensing billowing devil chi, and pressed down on Tianyang. Tianyang's expression changed greatly as he felt a boundless crisis. Chapter 678. Sir, I'm here to save you. Upon seeing this, Sanguinati roared. His soul power surged out, and he could not care less about how strong the Demon Emperor was. He held his long sword and attacked. Tianyang had practically given him a new lease on life. If not for Tianyang's intervention, he would still be a murderous maniac in a state of chaos. If not for Tianyang giving him the infant soul fruit, how could he have 50 to 60% of his peak strength? A person who should have been dead for 10,000 years was revived because of Tianyang. How could Sanguinati not be grateful? 7 Deadly Sword Technique, 7th Slash. Sanguinati roared. The long sword in his hand slashed out violently, forming 7 huge kill characters. Then, the countless kill characters merged into one. 7 Deadly Sword Technique, 7th Slash, 7 slashes superimposed. The power of each slash of the 7 Deadly Sword Technique was extremely terrifying. When the 7 slashes superimposed, the combined power would be extremely terrifying. Even though the Bloodsword ruler had yet to recover to his peak, the might of the 7 strikes technique wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the full force attack of an ordinary 3rd level Heaven Ascension stage expert. Stubborn resistance. The Demon Emperor sneered. Demonic chi surged in his hand, forming a demonic chi spear. Break! The long spear shot out explosively, shattering countless spaces. Following that, the extremely terrifying 7th strike was completely shattered. Sanguinati's face changed. His soul flame weakened significantly. However, he still channeled his soul power and roared. Endless killing Tao. Sanguinati roared. The killing sword in his hand emitted a bloody light. The 7th slash, which had been shattered, was instantly reformed. Together with the bloody sword light that Sanguinati had slashed out, it slammed heavily into the Demon Emperor's Heaven-Sealing imprint. Boom! The Demon Emperor's Heaven-Sealing seal, which was pressing down on Tianyang, instantly trembled and even paused for a moment. Seeing this, the Demon Emperor's face turned completely ugly. How dare you attack my Demon Emperor's Heaven-Sealing seal? You're courting death. The Demon Emperor bellowed and thrust out the spear in his hand. Bang! The defense that Sanguinati had hastily condensed collapsed in an instant, and even he himself was sent flying by the spear. Sanguinati's soul fire pulsed rapidly. At this moment, Sanguinati had been severely injured by this spear. The Demon Emperor was indeed the Demon Emperor. His strength was not something that Sanguinati, who had yet to recover to his peak, could withstand. My lord, I did my best, Sanguinati said as he fell limply to the ground. His soul fire was extremely weak. Then, Sanguinati's soul fire was suddenly extinguished. Bastard! Tianyang's eyes turned blood red. The soul fire was the guarantee for Sanguinati's survival. Now that the soul fire was extinguished, although it did not mean that Sanguinati was really dead, he was definitely on the verge of death. Here, the soul fire pill. Tianyang flipped his wrist, and a soul fire pill flew over. It automatically turned into a medicinal liquid in midair and merged into Sanguinati's body. In this way, Sanguinati's life was saved. However, it was impossible for him to recover within a few days. Just to help him resist the Demon Emperor's heaven-sealing seal for a few minutes. Ha! Soul fire pill? What's the use of the soul fire pill? Without a few days, these bones will definitely not recover. Seeing this, the Demon Emperor laughed wantonly. Your Zhen Yuan is about to be exhausted. Humph! Even if you don't open the seal for me, I can do it myself. You're merely at the peak of the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm, but you have the strength to contend with me. TSK. Such a genius, even in the noble heavenly demon clan, would be a peak heaven's pride. The Demon Emperor laughed heartily, and a greedy glint flashed through his eyes. If I can seize this body, I, Imatian, might be able to break through to the realm of Demon Venerable or even Demon Saint. Demon Emperor Imatian laughed crazily. Hearing this, Tianyang's face suddenly turned extremely cold. Seize? Perhaps you won't be able to wait until that day. Tianyang sneered. In the next moment, an extremely frightening pressure suddenly erupted. Surging soul power gushed out, spurring on Zhen Yuan. Countless pills fell into Tianyang's mouth, and in the next moment, Tianyang's cultivation base started to undergo earth-shaking changes. Bang! The barrier between the peak of the 5th and 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm was broken. What? Seeing this, the Demon Emperor's face changed greatly. Soon after, he reacted and laughed wildly. So what have you broken through now? Is the gap between the peak of the 5th and 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm that big? Just be a good boy and be my body. Demon Emperor's sky-sealing seal, seal the heavens. The Demon Emperor roared, and his hands formed a series of profound seals. The Demon Emperor's sky-sealing seal in the sky blazed brightly and ruthlessly pressed down on Tianyang. Boundless suppressive power pressed down on Tianyang's body, and Tianyang's face changed slightly. The Demon Emperor didn't want to kill him, but directly suppress him. If he suppressed him, then Tianyang's soul wouldn't die, and it would give the Demon Emperor the opportunity to devour Tianyang's soul and completely control his body. It had to be said that the Demon Emperor's vision was truly far-sighted. They were still in the middle of a battle, and he was already thinking about how to seize the body. Of course, this was also related to his belief that victory was already in his grasp. Unfortunately, your wishful thinking won't work. Tianyang sneered. In the next moment, the soul power belonging to the Tianji Sword Emperor instantly rushed out. The gap between the peak of the 5th and 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm might not be big, but this bit of gap is enough for me. Return to the throne. Tianyang faced the sky and roared. All of his soul power was unsealed. His Zhen Yuan, which had reached the peak of the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm, instantly rose sharply. Half-step Heavenly Completion Realm. 1st level of Heavenly Completion Realm. 2nd level of Sky Ascension Realm. 3rd level, 4th level, 5th level, 6th level. Tianyang disregarded everything and directly erupted with all of his soul power. In other words, Tianyang's Zhen Yuan at this moment directly reached peak of Sky Ascension Realm. Bang, 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 bang. Terrifying heavenly tribulations descended from the sky, seemingly wanting to shatter this monster Tianyang. However, Tianyang lightly smiled and casually waved his hand. The void sword embryo shone with a supreme radiance, instantly erasing the heavenly tribulations in the sky that had yet to take shape. Tianyang's attention didn't linger on the sky for too long. Instead, he looked at the Demon Emperor with an indifferent expression. Bloody scars appeared on his body one after another. Although the divine dragon body was powerful, it was still too difficult for it to bear the power of the peak of Sky Ascension Realm. However, how could you have this kind of strength? The Demon Emperor's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He looked at Tianyang with incomparable shock and couldn't even speak a complete sentence. I've already said that I've slaughtered people like you before. The one I slaughtered wasn't the Demon King, but the Demon Emperor. Tianyang faintly smiled, then extended his hand. A light pillar that seemed capable of shattering heaven and earth erupted from Tianyang's hand. Bang! Chapter 679. The Demon Emperor's heaven-sealing mark had been broken. The Demon Emperor trembled at the sight of this. He didn't doubt Tianyang's words at all. Based on the strength that Tianyang had just displayed, it would be easy for him to kill him. Even if he were still alive, he might not be a match for Tianyang. The Demon Emperor who had fought in the Tianshao Great World were all of the same strength. In other words, it was highly possible that the other Demon Emperors had died at Tianyang's hands. The Demon Emperor didn't know that Tianyang hadn't been so strong in his previous life, but that didn't stop him from being terrified. Now, only a wisp of his soul had come out. He could use the Demon Emperor's aura to fight and exert the combat power of a reaching heaven realm LV4. That was his limit, and Tianyang was now at the peak of the reaching heaven realm, a great emperor. He could destroy him with a flip of his hand. Sir, spare me. Spare me. The Demon Emperor knelt down immediately and kowtowed 3 times respectfully, begging for mercy. I'm more useful alive than dead, the Demon Emperor said loudly. Tianyang's face was still cold when he heard this. He slowly raised the great void sword embryo in his hand. The Demon Emperor's expression changed drastically. He couldn't care less about keeping people in suspense and stalling for time. His life was more important now. I'm from the Demon Realm. The Demon Realm is a world that surpasses the Tianshao Great World. Therefore, the secrets that I know are much more than the people of the Tianshao Great World. Of course, I'm not as good as you, sir, but I can still tell you a lot of things. For example, the Holy Path. Yes, the Holy Path. If you want to become a saint, you must comprehend the Holy Path. I happen to know something about the Holy Path. The Demon Emperor racked his brains and spat out all the secrets that he knew, as if he was afraid that Tianyang wouldn't be interested. The more he spoke, the more he knew. When Tianyang heard this, he was slightly taken aback. The Demon Emperor had only revealed this information in order to beg for mercy. To him, this was a huge secret. Above Wu Zun's plane was the Saint Plane, and in order to step into the Saint Plane, one must cultivate the divine path. Moreover, those half-saint artifacts, little saint alchemists, and saint alchemists seemed to be related to the saint path. In order to beg for mercy, the Demon Emperor spoke without thinking. He didn't care if it was important or not, and directly spat out everything he knew. So, I know all of this. Although Tianyang was extremely satisfied with the information he obtained, he still had to put on an act. Otherwise, if the Demon Emperor found out that he was satisfied, what else could he say? However, after hearing Tianyang's pretentious words, the Demon Emperor was dumbfounded. Do you know? How did you, a person from an aboriginal world, know all of this? However, when he thought of Tianyang's indifferent look when the half-saint armor appeared, the Demon Emperor was bewildered again. Could it be that this kid really knew? If that was the case, then it would be difficult to deal with. How about this? At this moment, the Demon Emperor suddenly smiled. Since you know everything, then I have a top secret here that no one in this world knows, the Demon Emperor said mysteriously. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. However, you have to promise me that you will let me go after knowing this secret. The Demon Emperor smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression darkened slightly. If that's the case, then I don't need this secret. Hearing this, the Demon Emperor panicked and hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. No. I mean, after you know this secret, you will let me leave the Earth Emperor Palace. How far can I go after leaving the Earth Emperor Palace? With your strength, you will definitely be able to catch me easily. There is no need to worry. Moreover, this secret is related to the life and death of this world, the Demon Emperor said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression darkened. Tianyang naturally scoffed at the Demon Emperor's words. The Demon Emperor must have some means to escape. However, was it related to the life and death of this world? If that was the case, Tianyang had to take it seriously. Okay, I promise you, Tianyang said lightly. Hearing this, the Demon Emperor was delighted. Then, he said in a low voice, "No, I have to make you swear the Great Heart Demon Oath. It's not impossible for me to swear the Great Heart Demon Oath, but what if what you said is false?" Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said. Hearing this, the Demon Emperor was stunned. Then his heart sank. It seemed that he couldn't fool Tianyang. However, he didn't think that Tianyang would leave him with such a loophole. "Then, I will swear the Great Heart Demon Oath too," the Demon Emperor said. Then, he bit his finger and shot out a drop of soul blood. "I swear in the name of the Demon Emperor En Motien that what I am about to say is true. If there is any falsehood, the Heart Demon Oath will consume my body, my martial arts will be crippled, and my demon soul will be destroyed," the Demon Emperor shouted. Then he looked at Tianyang. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. A drop of blood flew out of his hand. "I swear in the name of... After the Demon Emperor tells me the secret, I will let him leave the Earth Emperor Palace. If I can't do it, the Heart Demon Oath will consume my body, my martial arts will be crippled, and my soul will be destroyed." Heavenly Sun roared. Then, a rune condensed and dispersed with a loud bang. It turned into 2 streaks of bloody light. One flew into the Demon Emperor's body, and the other flew toward Tianyang. Good. Seeing this, the Demon Emperor was relieved. Then he smiled and said, "Since the Great Heart Demon Oath has been made, then I will say it. The secret is, every 18,000 years, the Demon Realm will organize a war to plunder and invade the various great worlds. According to the special secret method of the Demon Realm, it is known that 17,900 years ago, the Tianshao Great World was invaded by the Demon Realm." The Demon Emperor smiled. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed. Then, he thought of something and said coldly, "Then, I fought with the Demon Emperor 10,000 years ago. Don't tell me that the Demon Emperor is a fake. The Demon Emperor is at the peak of the reaching heaven state. It's not surprising that he has lived for thousands of years. Plans, schemes, and actions also require time. The last time I invaded this place, it took me 10,000 years to plan." The Demon Emperor smiled sinisterly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression darkened. "What you said makes sense. With the Great Heart Demon Oath, you're not lying." "So," Tianyang said. The Demon Emperor was overjoyed. After he left the Earth Emperor Palace, how could he, the great Demon Emperor, not have any means to escape from this person in front of him? This human really thought that he was helpless, as expected of a lowly and retarded race. "You could die now," Tianyang shouted. The next moment, he slashed out with his sword. The Demon Emperor's arm was instantly shattered into pieces. "What?" Seeing this, the Demon Emperor's expression changed. He roared miserably. "Human, you didn't keep your word. Aren't you afraid of the Great Heart Demon Oath?" "How can I keep my word to the demons? Also look carefully. That blood-red light is flying there." Tianyang smiled and turned his body. The Demon Emperor's expression changed abruptly. That blood-red light was flying toward Tianyang. However, it flew over. It landed outside on a corpse that had been dead for an unknown period of time. You lied to me," the Demon Emperor roared. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled coldly. "So what if I lied to you? Die." At the peak of the reaching heaven state, the power of a sword emperor erupted. Sky Extreme Sword Art, the 4th Sword Firmament. Bastard. The Demon Emperor's expression changed. Looking at this sword, his heart suddenly hardened. Chapter 680. Sky Demon Disintegration Technique. The Demon Emperor roared. In the next moment, the surrounding demonic aura began to tremble violently. It was as if all the Demon Emperor's aura had gone berserk at this moment, turning into a small but terrifyingly powerful domain. Within the domain, the Demon Emperor roared again and again. If the Sky Demon Disintegration Technique had a physical body, then only the physical body would disintegrate. If there was a chance, it could be repaired. If there was no physical body and only the soul, there would be the soul that disintegrated. If the soul disintegrated without a great opportunity, it would be impossible to recover in 10 years or even 100 years. However, because the price was so horrifying, the power of the sky demon disintegration technique was even more powerful. You want to fight to the death. Tianyang was interested. His heaven ascension, realm pinnacle vital essence, and soul power surged in his body. At this moment, he was not only at the heaven ascension realm pinnacle, but also a great emperor. The extreme state of sword Dao he had touched in his previous life was still useful now. In other words, if he displayed the extreme state of sword Dao he had broken through in his previous life, even if the demon emperor used the sky demon disintegration technique, he could still easily kill him. Damned human, how dare you deceive me? The demon emperor roared crazily. In the next moment, his soul power, which had been upgraded to Heaven Ascension Realm LV5, instantly burst out. Together with a monstrous demonic aura, it turned into a long spear. This long spear was thicker and wilder than the previous one. At the same time, its aura was more terrifying. Die! The demon emperor roared. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. Heaven Ascension Realm LV5 wanted to kill him? Kill a Heaven Ascension Realm Pinnacle Emperor? He didn't know whether the demon emperor had lost his mind due to anger or had other plans. Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't lower his guard and slashed out with the Great Void Sword Embryo in his hand. Styx River Sword Technique, 6 Style Hell Dao. Tianyang slashed out with his sword. The monstrous Styx River Chi was released. It was like a scene from hell, instantly covering the entire Earth Emperor Palace. Devils howled and ghosts ran amok. Amidst them, countless deathly sword lights shot out brazenly. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled. Even the earthly imperial palace was blasted open. Sunlight poured in, instantly lighting up the earthly imperial palace. The strength of the peak of the heavenly completion stage was not something that the earthly imperial palace, which had experienced countless years and had already withered, could withstand. However, seeing this scene, Tianyang's pupils suddenly shrank. The demon emperor wanted to use him to destroy the Earth Emperor Hall. Ha ha! Thanks a lot. From now on, I, the demon emperor Enmatian, am free. Ha ha! The demon emperor looked up at the sky, but he was still able to see the blue sky. He let out a hysterical laugh, and in the next moment, he soared into the sky. You want to run? What a joke. Tianyang's reaction was not slow. In fact, he was even faster than the initiator of the attack. With a slash of his hand, a net of swords covered the sky. Damn it! After rushing a few meters, the demon emperor saw the powerful net of swords. The demon emperor's face suddenly turned gloomy. Sky demon disintegration technique. Break again. The demon emperor roared and spat out another mouthful of soul blood essence. His aura erupted again, and he actually tore apart Tianyang's net of swords. Then, the demon emperor did not even care about the location of his demon emperor's corpse. He roared, "Boundary-breaking talisman!" The demon emperor roared, and in the next moment, a mysterious demon rune talisman appeared in his hand. Then, the demon emperor burned his demon chi crazily and successfully activated the boundary-breaking talisman. What? Seeing this, Tianyang's face changed. The boundary-breaking talisman was something that could break the barrier between two worlds. This was the earthly emperor small world. Although it was vast, it was still too small compared to the Tianshao Great World. Even if the demon emperor escaped, as long as he was in the earthly emperor small world, Tianyang could find him. However, once he used the boundary-breaking talisman to escape, the Tianshao Great World would be too big for even Tianyang to search. At that time, this guy would really run away. Don't even think about it. Tianyang's face darkened, and he used the void-stepping secret technique. His speed was far faster than in his previous life. The Great Void sword embryo in his hand slashed out dazzling sword light toward the demon emperor. Demon venerable power. At this moment, the demon emperor roared shrilly. Then, in the demon soul sea, a huge jade talisman shattered instantly. A shock wave at the level of Wu Zun's realm hit Tianyang hard. Puffed. Tianyang spat out a mouthful of blood, and his forward momentum instantly turned into reverse. Even though he was already an emperor, it was difficult for him to resist the power of Wu Zun's realm. The demon emperor actually had a Wu Zun's realm attack. Why didn't he take it out earlier? Why do you have to take it out now? Ha. No matter who you are, don't even think about restraining me now. The demon emperor laughed loudly, and the boundary-breaking talisman in his hand burned out. A space tunnel was formed that penetrated the space barrier between the earthly emperor small world and the Tianshao great world. Ha. Sooner or later, the demon emperor En Matian, will come back again. When that time comes, it will be the time of your death. The demon emperor laughed loudly. At this moment, the great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand shone brightly, and the heavenly sword struck out. If you want to leave, then leave something for me. Tianyang shouted coldly, and the true yuan of a peak heaven ascension realm was fully released. Sky Extreme Sword Technique, Final Sword. Sky Extreme. Heavenly Sun roared. In the next moment, an extremely powerful sword light swept out, shattering the 9 heavens. It was a sword that seemed capable of fusing heaven and earth into one, a sword that seemed capable of annihilating everything in its path. When the sword struck out, it was as if there was only that sword light in heaven and earth. It emitted light that even covered the sun. When the sword struck out, the earth seemed to tremble. Under Tianyang's feet, the solid ground cracked. This crack spread rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it covered the entire northern wilderness. It was still spreading rapidly in all directions. Sky Extreme Sword Art, the final sword, Sky Extreme. No matter how many swords Tianyang created, the final sword would always be Sky Extreme. This was because the Sky Extreme sword merged all the Sky Extreme sword techniques into one. When the sword struck out, only silence. Boom! The shock wave of Wu Zun's level was completely destroyed by this sword. The demon emperor roared in disbelief, and seemed to have released a few more Wu Zun's power. However, how could Tianyang, who had long been familiar with this level of power, let the demon emperor get what he wanted? He found the weakness of this power and broke it in an instant. Then, it pierced through the demon emperor's body. The demon emperor roared to the sky. His feminine and handsome face was now covered in blood. 2 lines of bloody tears flowed from his eyes, and blood spurted out of his mouth like a faucet. The power of his soul was completely annihilated. The origin of his soul was almost completely damaged, and only a little bit of his core was left. I will kill you, the demon emperor roared, and in the next moment, he rushed into the space tunnel. Chapter 681. I'll be waiting. The last sentence, a simple 3 words, even penetrated the space and fell into the demon emperor's ears. Hearing this, the demon emperor's face turned even paler. He spat out a mouthful of blood and then fainted. Fainting meant that even if the demon emperor used the boundary breaker talisman, he wouldn't be able to determine where he was going in the earthly emperor small world. Tianyang slowly landed on the ground. His heart was heavy. In the end, he still let the demon emperor escape. It wasn't that he didn't think of chasing after him, but the reason why the boundary breaker talisman was so famous was because of its absolute nature. Once it was used, only the user would know where to go. It was the same for others, even if they used the boundary breaker talisman made by the same person at the same time. Unless they had heaven-defying and terrifying luck, it was absolutely impossible to encounter it. If they were unlucky, one could be in the east of the continent, and the other could be in the west. I didn't expect that the demon emperor not only had the boundary breaker talisman, but also the attacks of the demon sovereigns. If not for that, my celestial sword would have killed him. Tianyang muttered to himself. The demon emperor had used the sky demon collapse technique twice in a row, but his actual strength was only at the 6th or 7th stage of the heaven ascension realm. If not for the weakening of the demon sovereign's power, Tianyang would have killed the demon emperor easily. However, forget it. The demon emperor first used the sky demon collapse technique twice, so his soul origin must have been greatly damaged. Moreover, he took my sword head-on. I'm afraid he's not far from death. Such a demon emperor is nothing to worry about. Tianyong muttered to himself, but there was still a huge rock in his heart. At the same time, a sense of crisis arose in his heart. According to the demon emperor, every 18,000 years, the demon realm would organize a plundering of the various large worlds. According to the demon emperor's special senses, it had been more than 17,000 years since the last time the Tianshao Great World was invaded by the demon realm. In other words, Tianyong had less than a few hundred years. Primordial Emperor, Su, should have encountered them before. However, it seems that every time they send out troops, there are strong and weak ones. If they are weak, then it's easy to deal with them. Tianyong muttered to himself. Then, he returned to Earthly Emperor Palace. Earth Emperor Palace. At this moment, the Earthly Emperor Palace had long become dilapidated due to the battle between Tianyong and the Demon Emperor. It no longer had the appearance of a majestic palace. Even the pavilions at the back of the Earthly Emperor Palace were now in ruins. However, the coffin in the center of the Earthly Emperor Palace, which was responsible for suppressing the Demon Emperor's corpse, was not damaged at all. Mysterious ice of the nine heavens, as expected. I should have thought of this earlier. If not for the mysterious ice of the nine heavens, how could it suppress the Demon Emperor? Looking at the coffin with only a corpse left, Tianyong knocked on his head with excitement. Mysterious ice of the nine heavens. Perhaps the name alone did not ring a bell. However, one only needed to give an example to show how powerful the mysterious ice of the nine heavens was. 10,000 years ago, the famous Ice Emperor had a supreme-grade spiritual longsword that was made of mysterious ice of the nine heavens. Moreover, when he was dealing with the Ice Emperor, Tianyong had specially borrowed it for reference. Now, connecting the information he had obtained previously, Tianyong could almost come to a conclusion. If he could replace the runes on the Ice Emperor's sword with Holy Dao runes, that sword would definitely be the most powerful low-grade sacred weapon. However, after all, it's something that fell into the Tianshao Great World by chance from another world. It's normal for it to be so powerful. Tianyong smiled slightly. Looking at the coffin made of mysterious ice of the nine heavens, his heart trembled. With so much mysterious ice of the nine heavens, perhaps its purity was not high, but it could be refined into a piece of mysterious ice of the nine heavens that was at least the size of a tea table. At that time, it could be used to make armors or long swords. Moreover, the armors and long swords that could be made would be the most perfect half-saint weapons, or even the embryo of a low-grade sacred weapon. Of course, it was still much weaker than the Great Void Sword embryo. Tianyong's heart skipped a beat. Then, he looked at the Demon Emperor's corpse that was hidden under the mysterious ice coffin. Only a trace of the Demon Emperor's soul had escaped, but it already had such combat strength. Then, what would the corpse be like? Open! Tianyong roared. Grabbing the edge of the coffin with both hands, Tianyong released the divine dragon's body, and endless power surged. He and the Earthly Emperor were at the same level. Moreover, he was much stronger than the Earthly Emperor who was on the verge of death. The Demon Emperor and the Earthly Emperor could not open this coffin, but he could. Boom! The nine heavens' profound ice coffin simply couldn't withstand the terrifying power of the heavenly sun. The originally tiny crack began to rapidly expand. Then Tianyong roared, and the mysterious ice coffin suddenly lifted up. Boom! A surging airwave burst out from the mysterious ice coffin and swept toward Tianyong. Tianyong's expression did not change. He stretched out his hand and easily wiped away the airwave. Then, he looked at the mysterious ice coffin, the Demon Emperor's corpse. The Demon Emperor's appearance was exactly the same as the Demon Emperor's soul. After all, it was impossible for the soul and the body to be different. However, Tianyong could feel that the Demon Emperor's corpse had a more terrifying power than the Demon Emperor's soul. This guy, when he escaped, he automatically reduced a lot of his power and left it in his body. Tianyong glanced at it and came to a realization. Otherwise, given the power of the nine heavens' mysterious ice coffin, the Nephilim Emperor would not have come out. But now it made sense. However, his power was reduced by more than half. Although there is a chance for him to regain his power if he manages to escape, the price is not something an ordinary person can afford, Tianyong muttered to himself. Then, he looked at the Demon Emperor's corpse, which contained most of the Demon Emperor's power and the body of the Demon Emperor, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He was not an equipment refiner, so he did not know how to use a corpse to refine a puppet. However, to him, a puppet that was weaker than him was useless. There is only one way to maximize the value of the Demon Emperor's corpse. Martial soul talent, devouring sky. Tianyong roared, and the devouring power surged out and acted on the Demon Emperor's corpse. At the same time, Tianyong formed a seal with his hands. While the sky firmament sword was devouring the demonic aura, he also performed the devouring sky seal to devour the Demon Emperor's body. He had forcefully activated his strongest combat power, which consumed too much of his power. If he could not replenish it, he would definitely be weak for a year and a half, or even fall into a deep sleep. But now, the Demon Emperor's corpse was the best replenishment. Boom! Two terrifying, devouring vortexes instantly appeared inside the mysterious ice coffin. Then, the Demon Emperor's corpse, which had been sealed by the mysterious ice coffin for countless years, disintegrated bit by bit. It turned into endless energy and entered the sky, firmament sword, and Tianyong's body. Then, Tianyong's cultivation suddenly skyrocketed. Chapter 682. Peak of the 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. In just one day, Tianyong had broken through from the peak of the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm to the peak of the 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. One whole level. TSK. This Demon Emperor is simply a welfare machine. Tianyong said to himself. Breaking through one level in one day might not be a big deal for other levels. However, Tianyong was now in the Sea of Soul Realm. The Sea of Soul Realm, standing at the top of the Tianshao Great Worlds Pyramid. Some Sea of Soul Realm cultivators, even super geniuses like Long Taiji, Huolingri, and Tanyu, who had been slaughtered before, would not be able to break through one level without the accumulation of time. After all, although Long Taiji, Huolingri, and the others looked like they were in their 20s or 30s, their real ages were probably close to 100 years old. Only Tang Fengling was truly 20 years old. However, her Sea of Soul Realm was not cultivated by herself, so this was ruled out. In the whole world, only Tianyong could break through one level in one day in the Sea of Soul Realm. Even the Tianji Sword Emperor in his previous life could not do it. It's a pity that he ran away. Otherwise, the demon soul origin would be even more nourishing. Tianyong shook his head regretfully. Then he looked at Sanguinati, who had just woken up from a coma and was still extremely weak, and Ling Yuhan, who had not helped much from the beginning to the end. Sanguinati was still extremely weak at the moment, but Ling Yuhan's face was full of shame. Before she came, she had said that she would use her nine-tailed moon fox martial spirit to help. However, the Demon Emperor's soul power was too strong. Almost from the beginning, it had entered a white-hot stage. Even when she wanted to help, Tianyong blocked her easily, which was why he did not appear from the beginning to the end. Master, I was wrong. Ling Yuhan lowered her head. Her cultivation base was at the 7th level of Sea of Soul Realm, which was even higher than Tianyong's. However, in this battle with the Demon Emperor, she was practically slacking off the entire time. Even she couldn't stand it anymore. Hearing this, Tianyong chuckled. You've just awakened your bloodline. It's good enough that you can exert your original combat strength. What help can you provide? The reason why I agreed to let you come here was to let you know your own cultivation. All right, that's enough. Now, Tianyong explained casually, and then looked at the bottom of the 9 heavens mysterious ice coffin after the Demon Emperor's body was crushed. There was a space array there, but it was dim and lightless. The inheritance of the earthly emperor is really well hidden. It can only be seen after the Demon Emperor's body is smashed. If other people came here, I'm afraid they would directly rush to the pile of pavilions behind. No wonder the inheritance has been opened so many times, but I've never heard of anyone obtaining it. Tianyong smiled faintly. The entrance of the earthly emperor's palace could withstand the attack of an 8th-level sea of Soul Realm expert. Just entering the earthly emperor's palace was enough to block many people. After entering the palace, one would have to endure the invasion of the demon emperor's chi and have a decisive battle with the demon emperor. Even if another emperor came here, he or she would only end up dead. At present, the only person who could do this was Tianyong. The others had either been blocked outside the door or died in the demonic chi. The drop of blood that Tianyong had taken had come from an unlucky fellow who had died in the demonic chi. However, this space array doesn't seem to have been opened. Sanguinati came up and said doubtfully. Hearing this, Tianyong smiled faintly. The demon emperor's body has been lying there for a long time. It was invaded by the demonic chi, so it's a bit damaged. It's not a big deal. Soon after, Tianyong extended his finger. The annihilation heavenly flame burned on his fingertip and fell on the damaged part of the array. As soon as the annihilation heavenly flame touched the 9 heavens' mysterious ice, a deep scar was immediately burned out. Tianyong casually made a few strokes, and the entire array was repaired by Tianyong. As he poured his true essence into it, the space array suddenly opened, and a space door opened. The earthly emperor's inheritance is inside. Looking at the open space door, Tianyong smiled faintly. Hearing this, Sanguinati was a bit apprehensive. That earthly emperor, he shouldn't be inside, right? Hearing this, Tianyong stared blankly for a moment, then chuckled. No, there are only some dead things in this space. They're probably the treasures of the earthly emperor when he was alive. As for things like soul imprints, there's no such thing. The treasures inside are all ownerless. Tianyong smiled. There was no soul imprint, which meant that even if there was a remnant soul, there was no space left. Hearing this, Sanguinati breathed a sigh of relief. The demon emperor suddenly came back to life and almost killed him twice. This emperor, who was famous for his fierceness 10,000 years ago, was really scared now. There's no time to lose. Let's go in. Tianyong smiled and then walked in. In the small space, Tianyong and the other 2 appeared in it. This is the location of the earthly emperor's inheritance? There's something there. Ling Yuhan looked around. It was very ordinary small space, so ordinary that there was no trace of spiritual chi. It was even worse than some mortal kingdoms. This kind of space, without a trace of spiritual chi, was simply fatal for cultivators. Although cultivators could open up Qi Si and Spiritual Si to accommodate Jin Yuan, it was only a little. Most of them still used the power of heaven and earth. For people like Tianyong, who almost did not rely on the power of heaven and earth and had an endless spiritual Si inside, they were not afraid of this place. There were also some body cultivators and soul cultivators who were not afraid of this place, but those people were few and far between. A tombstone, so the earthly emperor was buried here. Tianyong walked over, took a look, and said, what Ling Yuhan had discovered was precisely a stone tablet, a black stone tablet that could not be any more ordinary. There were only 4 ancient characters on it. The tomb of the earthly emperor. Then, these things, even if they're buried with him, they're also his inheritance. Tianyong looked around again. All kinds of treasures were arranged in an orderly manner, each of them exuding a strong aura, which seemed to be extremely powerful. Seeing this, Sanguinati and Ling Yuhan's hearts were hot, but they did not act rashly. Tianyong was still here. You can make the demon emperor be your tomb keeper. Since you're here, I'll light an incense for you. By the way, the demon emperor's body has been shattered, Tianyong said to himself. Then, the heavenly flame of annihilation burned. He took out a rare ambergris from his space bag and slowly lit it. The aroma spread, filling the whole space. Well, now take whatever treasures there are. This guy's obsession has dissipated. Tianyong chuckled and stood up. Hearing this, everyone was stunned, then looked at the earthly emperor's tombstone. They saw that the 4 big words on the tombstone seemed to be a little dim at the moment. Chapter 683. Sir, didn't you say there was no soul imprint? Sanguinati said, trembling as he looked at the haunted tombstone. As an emperor, he was naturally not afraid of ghosts. However, if this ghost was an expert at the peak of the reaching heaven state, it would be a different story. There is no soul imprint. Moreover, this thing is not the ghost of a remnant soul you think it is. It's just an obsession about killing demons. Tianyang said with a heavy heart. In ancient times, martial arts had just sprouted. It was almost a miracle that these people could cultivate to the peak of the reaching heaven state. However, even those at the peak of the reaching heaven state needed weapons and martial arts techniques to exert the power of the peak of the reaching heaven state. At that time, martial arts had just sprouted. How could there be so many martial arts techniques and weapons to use? Otherwise, with the strength of the earthly emperor, who was not inferior to the Yuan emperor, he would have killed the demon emperor long ago. Tianyang was able to rise against the heavens largely because the martial arts civilization was extremely prosperous 10,000 years ago. All right, don't dwell on it too much. This obsession has already dissipated. From now on, the earthly emperor is just a name in this world. Tianyang said. Hearing this, Sanguinati was relieved. He ran to the pile of treasures and began to choose. Although he was an emperor, he was at the bottom of the rankings. How could he have so many martial arts techniques to use? Tianyang had a lot in his head, but Tianyang did not accept disciples. Ling Yuhan was his limit. Sanguinati knew himself very well. He was a pile of bones. Tianyang would be a fool to accept him. Like now, being Tianyang's follower and Tianyang could give him a move or a big opportunity from time to time. This was Sanguinati's path. Earth high-class martial arts technique, Sand Blood Wave Fist. Earth low-class martial arts technique, Sandstorm Sky. Low-grade heaven-class technique, Great Desolation Scripture. Tianyang looked at the cultivation methods and martial skills that were displayed one by one. His expression did not change at all. It was not that he did not have these martial skills. Even the earthly sovereign's low-grade heaven-class cultivation method, the Great Desolation Scripture, did not catch Tianyang's eye. Before the Wuzun realm, Tianyang's divine desolate heavenly spirit art was almost perfect, but after the Wuzun realm, Tianyang still did not know anything about it. In that case, even if he survived the heavenly tribulation and obtained the Wuzun realm, it would be very difficult for him without the Wuzun realm cultivation method. In ancient times, when the heavens and earth first opened, the barrier between the world and other worlds was not so big. This earthly sovereign should be able to find some Wuzun level cultivation methods. Tianyang muttered to himself. The Wuzun realm. Tianyang had only heard of it from All Heaven Sword and the Demon Emperor, but he did not know how to cultivate it. The reason why he came to the earthly sovereign's inheritance was purely because of the cultivation method that could lead to the Wuzun realm. However, there was none. Tianyang even had some ideas about the Saint realm. However, what was the use of that? Tianyang was not a god. How could he skip the Wuzun realm and directly reach the Saint realm? After searching around for a while, Tianyang shook his head. When he reached the Heaven Ascension realm in the future, he would make a trip to Sword Star City. The information hidden in All Heaven's Sword should be far more than that. On the other side, Ling Yuhan had already finished her selection. Top-grade Earth-class movement technique, Phantom movement technique. Not bad. Your movement technique is indeed a little lacking. This Phantom movement technique is just right for you. Tianyang glanced at the movement technique that Ling Yuhan had chosen and nodded slightly. This movement technique was indeed not bad. Top-grade Earth class, even the Dragon Suppression Step that Tianyang had cultivated in the beginning and the Roaming Dragon Step later could not reach it. Only the dragon roaming 9 heaven steps later could barely surpass it. Ling Yuhan had the bloodline of the 9-tailed heavenly moon fox, and some of her requirements for martial skills were somewhat different from the general human race. Tianyang was also sincerely happy that Ling Yuhan was able to choose a suitable movement technique. At this moment on the other side, TSK Wild Sand Divine Technique. Don't tell me you're planning to cultivate this technique. Tianyang glanced at the technique that Sanguinati had chosen, curled his lips, and said, the Wild Sand Divine Technique was just a half-step heaven-class technique. It was even inferior to the Great Desolation scripture that Tianyang had seen previously. Sanguinati's brain had gone haywire. Why would he choose this technique? Yes, the technique that I had in my previous life was only a mid-grade Earth-class technique. It's inferior to this. Moreover, although the Great Desolation scripture is powerful, it's not very suitable for my killing Tao. That's why I chose this Wild Sand Divine Technique. At least it's better than the one in my previous life. Sanguinati smiled bitterly. This earthly sovereign walked the Tao of Earth, which was completely different from his killing Tao. Only this Wild Sand Divine Technique could be related to his killing Tao. However, because it was not completely a killing Tao technique, although it was a half-step heaven-class technique, compared to the mid-grade Earth-class technique that Sanguinati had in his previous life, it was not necessarily much better. If it was any other time, Tianyang might have let Sanguinati cultivate it. In his mind, there was no good killing Tao technique that could compare to the Wild Sand Divine Technique. However, now it was different. Sanguinati, let me ask you, if I have a technique that you can cultivate, what would you do? Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly as he stared seriously at Sanguinati. Hearing this, Sanguinati was stunned. Then his heart trembled. Tianyang was testing him. If he said no, Tianyang might not do anything to him. However, he would definitely not give that technique to him. At the same time, he would not give him the most important trust. After all, Sanguinati and Tianyang had known each other for only a few months. However, if he said yes, then he, Sanguinati, would be branded with Tianyang's brand from then on. He must be loyal to him. These two choices, I, Sanguinati, swear on my inner demon. In this life, I will be revered by the Tianji Sword Emperor, Lord Tianyang. If I violate this oath, heaven and earth will be shattered, and I will be struck by lightning. Sanguinati roared. In the next moment, he forcefully extracted a drop of soul origin from his already weak soul power. It turned into an inner demon rune and appeared on his body. In the next moment, the inner demon rune exploded with a dazzling light and returned to Sanguinati's body. However, it carried the great inner demon oath. After swearing the great inner demon oath, Sanguinati would definitely be Tianyang's man from now on. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled lightly. Whether Sanguinati was loyal or not was not very important to him. Even if Sanguinati had fully recovered, he would not have been able to defeat the previous demon emperor. However, Sanguinati had been with him for a few months after all. If possible, Tianyang naturally did not want Sanguinati to leave just like that. Tianyang was naturally very happy that Sanguinati was willing to stay. Since that's the case, I'll give you this heaven-level martial skill, the Myriad Blood God Technique. Tianyang smiled lightly. In the next moment, under Sanguinati's incredulous gaze, he threw the Myriad Blood God Technique scroll to Sanguinati. Sanguinati caught the Myriad Blood God Technique in a fluster. His face was filled with gratitude. He immediately knelt on one knee and shouted loudly. Chapter 684. Until now, it had been 10 months since the start of the martial arts conference. Now 5/6 of the martial arts conference had already passed. Of course, Tianyang had also celebrated his 18th birthday in these 10 months. Of course, he had celebrated it in the midst of battle. In the remaining 2 months, Tianyang and the others had not been idle. Apart from cultivating various martial skills and digesting the opportunities they had obtained in various secret realms, they had also been killing monsters and fighting enemies. As for enemies, Heavenly Een Mountain, annihilated. The Heavenly Demon Cult, annihilated. The Black Dragon Clan, annihilated. Apart from a few small factions and clans that could not even withstand a single blow, Tianyang could not think of a single enemy that could be dealt with. Since Tianyang had nothing to do, those demonic beasts were in trouble. Although Tianyang had experienced an earth-shattering battle and made a breakthrough in his cultivation, his combat strength had been greatly reduced. It had taken him more than a month to recover. But for the monsters in the Earthly Emperor pocket world, It was a nightmare. Wherever they passed, any monster that had attacked them with a screw loose was slaughtered. Those that did not attack or hid in a corner to watch had their azurite extracted. Therefore, apart from Tianyang, who remained in first place, the others had also begun to change. Ling Yuhan, who had originally been ranked who knew what, had leaped to third place with a single leap. Second place was Long Taiji, fourth place was Hua Lingri, and fifth place was Tang Fengling. As for Yu Jianshun, although his cultivation was not weak, most of the monsters they encountered were dealt with by Ling Yuhan and Sanguinati. He had barely fought. Therefore, even if someone gave him an azurite, he would not want it. Therefore, Yu Jianshun was a little bitter. He was only 10th. However, this result had far exceeded everyone's expectations. Above was only the individual ranking. Above the sect ranking, the Star Swordplay sect had two giants in the individual ranking, Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. They had left everyone else in the dust and crushed the other sects. What? Sacred Grounds of Martial Arts, Scarlet Flame Sect, Nine Heavens Palace, Buddhists of the Western Region, and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace? Long Taiji and Ao Ling added together were not even 1/8 of Tianyang's. Ling Yuhan could surpass him at any time. Ao Ling had been slacking off, so how could he beat the Star Swordplay sect? As for Scarlet Flame Sect and Nine Heavens Palace, they were not weak, but Tianyang was too strong. Therefore, the day before the martial arts competition ended, the individual ranking 9,999,999,999,999. Second, East Sea Dragon Palace, Dragon Crown Prince Long Taiji, 123,681 Azure Crystals. Third, Star's Swordplay Sect, Ling Yuhan, Celestial Cyan Crystals, 1121,682. Yu Jianshun from Sword Sect, 46,300. There were only 10 spots in the top 10, and Tianyang's group had taken up 4 of them. This was because Sanguinati had been working hard to comprehend the almighty blood god technique. Otherwise, how could he, who had pledged his loyalty to Tianyang, let go of this opportunity to show off? Of course, it was unfair to let a Heaven Ascension realm cultivator kill the demonic beasts. Regardless of whether it was the demonic beasts or the contestants, of course, Tianyang was the only one in the earthly Emperor small world who could find a Heaven Ascension realm helper. If you were unhappy, you could find one too. Speaking of which, how did this Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden fly into my hands? Tianyang muttered to himself. Unlike Taishu Emperor's Taishu Palace, Earthly Emperor did not leave any means to control Earthly Emperor Palace. Tianyang was still worrying about how to take out Earthly Emperor's spiritual herb garden. Unexpectedly, the spiritual herb garden flew into Tianyang's hands as soon as Tianyang went out. However, the silver infant soul fruit's growth cycle is not long, and the golden infant soul fruit is about to mature. If you concentrate on practicing the almighty blood god technique, you can recover your peak strength in a few years. At that time, you can also prepare to find a physical body to resurrect. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, Sanguinati trembled all over. Resurrection, for a person who had been dead for 10,000 years, was simply an extravagant hope. It was something he could only hope for, but could not achieve. Even though Sanguinati had recovered some of his strength and was already in the Heaven Ascension realm, it was still hard to imagine. After all, if he wanted to resurrect with only his soul, it would be fine. But now his soul was attached to his bones. Without his bones, his soul would naturally perish. If others wanted to resurrect, they could just find a body with a higher compatibility. But Sanguinati wanted to resurrect. Not only did his soul have to be compatible, but his bones also had to be compatible. But don't forget about the almighty blood god technique. Tianyang said with a smile. The Bloodsore Monarch's mind shook when he heard this, and he recalled something. These days, he had been practicing the almighty blood god technique. He had a more specific understanding of the various magical aspects of the almighty blood god technique. Unfortunately, his foundation had been fixed at the Heaven Ascension realm. Although the almighty blood god technique had played a powerful role from the beginning, he could only look at it and sigh. There was no way he could practice it. But Sanguinati still remembered. The 6th level that he was practicing now, if he reached the final level, then he could reconstruct his flesh. Thank you for your guidance, Your Excellency. Sanguinati got down on one knee and shouted. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled. He couldn't practice the almighty blood god technique, and the others weren't suitable for it either. Only Sanguinati was qualified to master this heaven-level technique. In this case, instead of hiding it, it was better to teach him the mystery of the almighty blood god technique directly. In this way, Sanguinati's loyalty to Tianyang would double, and Sanguinati's strength would be strengthened and the team would be strengthened. Tianyang naturally wouldn't refuse to do such a thing that would only bring him benefits and no harm. Well, we'll talk about it when we have the chance in the future. Tianyang chuckled. At this moment, he was standing on the highest peak of a mountain in the northern wilderness with a group of people. He raised his head to look at the sky. Suddenly, ripples appeared in the blue sky. Seeing this, countless people and geniuses in the earthly emperor small world all looked up at the sky. There were more and more ripples, and they became denser and denser. Even from countless miles away, they could feel the increasingly powerful energy fluctuations. Except for those who were already dead, all the participants of the martial art competition looked up. They looked up at the sky, a huge space portal that connected to the Tianshao Great World. Chapter 685. The space door opened. The martial arts contest was over. In an instant, a strong suction force was released from the space gate and wrapped around everyone's bodies. The powerful force directly pulled these people towards the space gate. Tianyang and his team also encountered the suction force, but no need. I can fly by myself. Tianyang smiled faintly. He waved his hand and broke the suction force. Of course, he didn't need anyone's help. Moreover, Tianyang didn't like the feeling of not being in control of his position. The others in Tianyang's team also cut off the suction force that wanted to entangle them. They rose into the air and flew toward the Tianshao Great World. The space door was getting bigger and bigger. At this moment, a flame suddenly appeared and an arrogant voice was heard. "Ha ha! The first one to go out must be me, Huolingri." Huolingri laughed. His body was like a fiery red flowing light, rushing toward the sky. Seeing this, everyone's eyes narrowed. A man in a green robe sneered and attacked fiercely. "Huolingri, do you really think you're invincible? I, Luxiajiang, may not be able to defeat you, but I can stop you from being so arrogant." The green-robed man sneered. The next moment, an aquamarine genuine essence condensed and suddenly attacked. Boom! The aquamarine genuine essence transformed into a huge willow branch, wrapping Huolingri's body. Huolingri's forward momentum suddenly stopped. Seeing this, Huolingri couldn't help but be furious. "Luxiajiang, you're courting death." Hearing this, Luxiajiang was not afraid. The aquamarine genuine essence in his hand flew out and transformed into willow branches, flying toward Huolingri. Seeing this, everyone's expression didn't change. They were not surprised. Luxiajiang was not from the central region. He came from the western part of the continent, which was further west than the Western region Buddhist sect. Although genuine essence was also cultivated there, it was much more peculiar than ordinary genuine essence. For example, the curse that Ao Ling was once cursed by was a method from the western part of the continent. Of course, compared with the genuine essence, it was unknown which was stronger. But at least, it could be seen that Huolingri was completely restrained by Lu Tiaojiang. TSK. Interesting. Seems like the first place will still belong to my Nine Heavens Palace. Seeing that Lu Tiaojiang and Huolingri were entangled in a fight, a clear and melodious laughter was heard. A beautiful girl with flames under her feet flew towards the space door at an extremely fast speed. Holy Maiden of the Nine Heavens Palace, Tang Fengling. Everyone's hearts trembled. These geniuses that were rarely seen on normal days were actually fighting each other at this time. This was a grand occasion that they would rarely see in their entire lives. However, before Tang Fengling could surpass Huo Lingri, she was stopped by Huo Lingri's cyan lotus fire. I can't kill Luxiajiang, but it's not a problem to stop everyone who surpasses me. Huo Lingri chuckled. Hearing this, Tang Fengling was furious. The nine heavens flame gushed out crazily from her hand, but it still could not break through Huo Lingri's cyan lotus fire. During this year, Huo Lingri had not been idle. His cultivation had improved a lot, from the 7th level of the Sea Spirit realm to the 8th level of the Sea Spirit realm. Until now, Tang Fengling did not dare to use the power in her body. Therefore, when she saw Huo Lingri stopping her, she could only stop helplessly. If she wanted to go out, she had to wait until Huo Lingri and Luxiajiang finished their battle. Stop everyone who surpasses you? Since when did the Red Flame sect become so arrogant? At this time, a light and unruly voice was heard. The next moment, a young man who looked like a real dragon appeared in front of everyone in an instant. Rolling dragon power was released, suppressing the whole place. Seeing this, Luxiajiang, Huo Lingri, Tang Fengling, and other geniuses who wanted to fight but had not yet done so were all stunned. Their expressions quickly became dignified. East Sea Dragon Palace, Dragon Prince Long Taiji had come. Tisk TSK. The geniuses of the 4 major martial arts holy lands, except for Siu, who may have been killed by Tianyang. The other 3 have already appeared. A young man praised. The 4 geniuses who appeared in front of him almost represented the entire earthly Emperor Small World and the entire martial arts conference. However, in everyone's mind, if that person did not appear, it would be impossible to remove this almost. Long Taiji actually came. Tang Fengling looked at Long Taiji and was slightly stunned. She knew that ever since Long Taiji attacked Tang Ba, he had been following Tianyang. Now that Long Taiji had appeared, that legendary existence. Yes, he's also here. Long Taiji smiled slightly. The next moment, a figure that was not tall nor thin walked up to them at a moderate pace. Every time he stepped on the ground, it was as if he was stepping on solid ground. The space door opened high up in the sky. This person actually walked up with his feet. There was not a trace of genuine essence fluctuation. Seeing this 18-year-old youth, everyone opened their mouths and eyes wide, looking at the person in the sky. His face was not very handsome. Compared to Long Taiji and Huo Lingri, he was a little worse. Even Yu Jianshun was similar to him. However, as soon as this person appeared, he was like a huge Xinguang, standing shoulder to shoulder with the sun, overshadowing everyone else's brilliance. He came from a third-rate force, but he was a legend who dominated the martial arts conference. He was the real, strongest genius of the 3,000 realms in Heaven Continent. The Sword King, Tianyang. My lord, please. Long Taiji smiled as he pointed at the spatial gate and laughed. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged. If Long Taiji had not wanted to show off, he would not have cared so much. He would have just appeared quietly in the crowd. He would be the first to go out, without spiritual stones or gold coins. He would have nothing. However, since Long Taiji had tried his best to invite him, Tianyang could not refuse him and walked into the space door. I wonder who will be the champion this time. Outside the space gate, experts from various powerful forces stood in the air. They looked at the huge space gate and laughed. Usually, the first person to come out is the champion. In my opinion, the champion this time should be Huo Lingri from the Red Flame sect. A rough middle-aged man laughed. Hearing this, a man with dragon horns on his head sneered. How is it possible? With the Dragon Prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace here, how can Huo Lingri be the champion? Amiba, the Buddhist sect's disciple, Siu, has a profound understanding of Buddhism. It's reasonable for him to be the champion. A bald man laughed. The young woman next to him shook her head. She did not have any hope for her half-baked 7th-level sea of Soul Realm Saintus. The space door is glowing. Someone is coming out. At this moment, someone with sharp eyes saw the strange movement of the space door and exclaimed. Hearing this, Everyone was shocked and looked at the space door. Was it Hua Lingri, Long Taiji, Siyu, or Tang Fengling? Everyone was extremely excited and nervous. Then, a figure walked out of the space door. Seeing this person, everyone's expression stiffened. Chapter 686. Who is this guy? Where did this guy come from? Which force is this guy from? Instantly, a series of 3 questions appeared in everyone's mind. They looked at Tianyang, who was walking out in shock. After the martial arts competition ended, the first person to rush out of the spatial door would definitely be the strongest. After all, for this honor, those geniuses would directly make a move. However, why was this guy the first to walk out of the spatial door without even a speck of dust on his body, let alone make a move? Could it be that he took advantage of the chaos inside and ran out? A middle-aged man was puzzled. Hearing this, everyone nodded, but the dragon-horned middle-aged man shook his head. Impossible. If he sneaked out, not to mention how he has such great ability, once he comes out, he'll find out that he doesn't have the strength to match up to the first place. Isn't that asking for humiliation? This first place is just an honor. An honor without strength is just a joke. The dragon-horned middle-aged man said. Hearing this, the rugged middle-aged man from the Scarlet Flame, Sect, raised his eyebrows. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Why don't we just capture him and ask him? In the next moment, a terrifying 9th-level sea of soul realm aura suddenly erupted from the rugged middle-aged man's body. Billowing true yuan condensed and transformed into a huge hand, ruthlessly grabbing at Tianyang. As for Tianyang, he was sighing with emotion. Sure enough, it's easier to absorb the heaven and earth spirit chi in the Tianshao Great World. The Earth Emperor Small World is simply a replica of the ancient times. The heaven and earth spirit chi inside is extremely barren. If it weren't for the heaven and earth tide, people would be suffocated to death there. Tianyang sighed. At this moment, his eyes suddenly focused and his brows slightly furrowed. A terrifying gust of 9th-level sea of soul realm wind rushed towards him. What the hell? Tianyang frowned and snorted coldly. True yuan condensed in his hand, and the 6th-level sea of soul realm's true yuan was released. In the next moment, he held the stick sword and directly slashed out. Boom! The rough middle-aged man condensed his true essence into a large hand and was instantly defeated by Tianyang's sword. Following that, Tianyang's face turned cold as he activated the divine desolate heavenly spirit art and slashed out twice. Styx River Swordsmanship, 4th move, Tao of Azura. Styx River Sword Technique, 5th form, Reincarnation Path. In an instant, 2 heaven-rank sword techniques slashed out, and they practically tore space apart. They blasted apart the enormous hand of the middle-aged man that attacked once more, and then they struck fiercely towards the middle-aged man. The moment he made his move, he was extremely fierce and did not show any mercy. What? The rugged middle-aged man's face went pale when he saw this. He didn't expect that his second attack would be easily blocked by this youth, and a trace of astonishment couldn't help but arise in his heart. This young man looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old, but he actually possessed such terrifying combat strength. The second time, even Hua Lingri could hardly withstand it. However, Tianyang had broken 2 of his moves with only 1 strike. No wonder you're the first one to come out. With such combat strength, you're definitely a genius of the generation. The rugged middle-aged man chuckled. The genuine yuan of the 9th-level sea of soul realm surged rapidly in his hand, and in the next moment, he made his move again. Earth rank upper grade martial skill, Great Monument Smashing Hand. The rugged middle-aged man roared, and an extremely violent and terrifying genuine yuan burst out, turning into an indomitable giant palm print that struck fiercely towards Tianyang. If this palm print landed, even a 6th-level sea of Soul Realm warrior would be severely injured in an instant and lose the ability to fight. However, seeing the rugged middle-aged man's move, Tianyang's eyes turned somewhat cold. He knew that he had no enmity with this guy, but he suddenly attacked as soon as he came out. It was fine if this guy was just testing him, but he couldn't do it again and again. Break! Tianyang roared coldly, and the genuine yuan in his body surged rapidly. 2 rays of dazzling sword light burst out and directly enveloped the great monument's smashing hand. Immediately after, the extremely violent sword intent tore apart this palm print and crushed it into nothingness. Even old Demon Ho's great monument smashing hand was easily broken. What was the background of this young man? Seeing this, the dragon-horned middle-aged man, the Buddhist Arhat, and the beautiful woman from Nine Heavens Palace all had a huge change in expression as they looked at this sword. The shock that rose in their hearts was not much less than that of the rugged middle-aged man himself. Even the great monument smashing hand was broken. Seeing this, the rugged middle-aged man's expression changed greatly, and for the first time, a trace of danger rose in his heart. And at this moment, the 2 rays of sword light suddenly disappeared. The rugged middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned, and in the next moment, boom! 2 huge bloody scars suddenly appeared on the rugged middle-aged man's chest. The 2 rays of sword light pierced through his clothes, and the middle-grade spirit artifact battle armor underneath, and directly sent him flying. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, the rugged middle-aged man was directly sent flying over 100 li by Tianyang's sword, and he still hadn't stopped. Seeing this, the Buddhist Arhat, the dragon-horned middle-aged man, and the beautiful woman from Nine Heavens Palace, 3 of them were at the 9th level of sea of Soul Realm. Below them were glorious Sun Spirit King, Sword Star City, Lord Tai Wuji, and a series of Spirit King experts above the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm. And in all directions, countless people were watching the scene of the martial arts competition from a distance. All of them were stunned. Old Demon Hoa was actually sent flying. The beautiful woman from Nine Heavens Palace had a look of disbelief on her face. Old Demon Hoa, among the 4 of them, might not be the strongest, but he was definitely not the weakest. Such an existence, in an ordinary territory, even in a territory like the Firmament Territory or the Spiritual Martial Field, which was second only to the Central Territory, would be an overlord who could cover the sky with one hand. But in the end, here, he was sent flying by an unknown young man. This was too unbelievable. This guy seems to be only at the peak of the 6th level of Sea of Soul Realm. The dragon-horned middle-aged man's observation power was obviously much deeper than that of the beautiful woman from Nine Heavens Palace, and his eyes were shining as he looked at Tianyang. Moreover, why do I vaguely feel a terrifying sense of oppression from this human young man? The dragon-horned middle-aged man muttered to himself. At this moment, the space door opened again. Everyone's attention was attracted to it. This time, those who came out were Long Taiji, Hua Lingri, Tang Fengling, and the others who occupied the top 10 of the spirit list. Then, the others came out one after another. There were at least hundreds of thousands of people who participated in this martial arts competition. However, after a year, only tens of thousands of people were able to walk out of the earthly Emperor Small World alive. Nearly 700 to 800,000 people died in it. These tens of thousands of people were not weak. They stood in the space in groups. Some were calm, some were bathed in blood, some were in high spirits, and some looked dispirited. Seeing these geniuses, the eyes of countless forces lit up. These were the new blood of the sex. At this moment, the rugged middle-aged man flew over. After glancing at Tianyang angrily, he flew into the sky and used the authority granted to him by the Red Flame sect to open the individual ranking and the sect ranking. The martial arts competition is officially over. Now, first of all, we will announce the rewards obtained by the prodigies on the individual ranking. The rugged middle-aged man, Old Demon Hoa, said loudly. Hearing this, the tens of thousands of noisy people beside the space door suddenly quieted down. Countless gazes gathered on the rugged middle-aged man. The rugged middle-aged man opened his mouth and said, "First place, Sword King Tianyang, obtained 999,999 azure crystals." Just as the rugged middle-aged man finished speaking, He raised his eyebrows and realized that this name was unfamiliar. However, when the owner of this name walked up, the rugged middle-aged man's face immediately turned ashen. Chapter 687. How could it be this guy? Looking at the expressionless Tianyang with a trace of coldness in his eyes, the rugged middle-aged man only wanted to roar madly in his heart. It was one thing for him to be the first to come out of the spatial door and be broken by the other party. It was inevitable that he had some tricks up his sleeves. However, his next two attacks were broken by Tianyang, and he was even sent flying by Tianyang. Although Tianyang's two swords were weakened several times and did not have much power left, he was still sent flying. He even spat out a mouthful of blood. This feeling was simply like putting his face in Tianyang's hands. This slap to the face was resounding, and he asked for it. Now that the rugged middle-aged man saw Tianyang, he was naturally ashamed and angry to the extreme. "You're Tianyang." Looking at the young man in front of him, the rugged middle-aged man said coldly. The previous attacks had already formed a grudge between the two. Now that he was facing Tianyang, the rugged middle-aged man naturally would not be polite. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "Doubt? Then let's fight, and you'll know whether I'm the one or not." Tianyang said indifferently. Tianyang did not have the slightest good impression of people who hurt others based on their own preferences. However, after being stopped by Tianyang, the rugged middle-aged man's face became even more gloomy. Murderous intent surged in his eyes as he looked at Tianyang. In that case, there's no need to verify. This is the reward for the first place. The rugged middle-aged man said coldly. Then a spatial bag flew out of his hand and shot towards Tianyang. This speed was almost faster than the speed of sound. Even an 8th level C of Soul Realm Cultivator would not be able to catch it at such a close distance if he was caught off guard. At that time, Tianyang would be hit in the head by this spatial bag in front of everyone's eyes, and his reputation would be ruined. It had to be said that this move was simply played beautifully. It was sinister, but there was no fault to be found. If Tianyang could not catch it, then Tianyang's reputation would be destroyed overnight. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Tianyang's expression did not change. He took the spatial bag indifferently and did not even bother to open it. He found the people from Star's Swordplay sect. The people from Star's Swordplay sect did not disappoint. In a year's time, none of them died, and their progress was not small. The lowest of the 2 C of Soul Realm Cultivators was the 2nd level C of Soul Realm, and the highest seemed to have obtained some opportunity to break through to the 3rd level. Tianyang smiled when he saw Sun Xing's arrogant expression disappear and was replaced by a determined one. He had not come to this martial arts conference for nothing. Originally, the Star Swordplay sect was supported by him and Zhou Tong. Now, the Star Swordplay sect that had grown up in this martial arts conference would definitely become the mainstay of the Star Swordplay sect. Even if he was gone, the Star Swordplay sect would be able to maintain itself well. "Well done," Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing that, the Star Swordplay sect members were overjoyed and excited. "You can have the first prize. It's my last gift to Star's Swordsmanship sect," Tianyang said with a smile as he threw the prizes he had received from the rugged middle-aged man to the people of Star's Swordplay sect. Hearing this, the leader immediately became flustered and shocked. His left hand flipped, and his right hand flipped up and down a few times before he could hold it firmly. "My lord, this cannot be accepted," the leader of the 3rd C of Soul Realm hurriedly said. Tianyang had helped the Star Swordplay sect. Although their strength had improved, they were still weak in a martial arts conference. The reason why the Star Swordplay sect could turn the tide and become the first was entirely because of Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. They had made almost no contribution at all. Now, they had to accept Tianyang's first prize. How could they bear to do so? Just accept it. What nonsense are you talking about? At this moment, a chuckle came from the side. Ling Yuhan had also received her prize and walked over. Then, she also threw her prize to the disciples of Star's Swordplay sect. Pills, spirit stones, Reiki, weapons, we have so many of these things that we want to throw up. It's useless to take them. It's better to give them to you trash, Tianyang said with a smile. Moreover, after this martial arts conference, perhaps we will rarely return to the Stars Swordplay sect. You are the future pillars of the Stars Swordplay sect. How can you be weak? Tianyang said. Hearing this, the disciples of the Stars Swordplay sect trembled. The way they looked at Tianyang suddenly changed. My lord, you are leaving? Sun Xing said. They all knew that the Stars Swordplay sect, a small cage, could not control Tianyang, a goshawk destined to fight in the sky. However, when Tianyang was about to leave, they still could not help but feel sad. Yes, Tianyang's reply was simple. Then he looked at the sky. The rewards of the personal ranking were only for the top 100. The top 100 passed quickly. Next was the sect ranking. The Star Swordplay sect was naturally the first in the sect ranking. It attracted the attention of countless people. Most people found it hard to believe and even snorted at it. However, only a few people knew. All of this was real. It was all the work of that mythical person. As the rewards were distributed, the exit of the Earthly Emperor's small world and the square of the Earthly Emperor's city enter climax. The last segment of the martial competition. All the major sects and forces were recruiting disciples. Those who are willing to join the Red Flame sect and have reached the third level of the Sea of Soul realm and are under the age of 70, please come here. Those who are willing to join the Nine Heavens Palace, please come here. Those who want to join the Sun Moon sect, those who want to join the Mountain River sect, one by one, the shouts made the whole place boil. The people from the Stars Swordplay sect looked at this scene calmly, watching silently. They had already decided to stay in the Stars Swordplay sect for the rest of their lives. Naturally, they would not care about these martial Tao Holy Lands and first-rate forces. However, even if they did not go, someone came looking for them. To be precise, they came looking for Tianyang. Sword King Tianyang, I wonder if you're interested in joining my Nine Heavens Palace? The leader of the Nine Heavens Palace this time, the beautiful woman who was at the 9th level of the Sea of Soul realm, came in front of Tianyang and smiled. At this moment, a stream of light flashed by and a tall figure walked over. Elder Hua said that if you are willing to join the Red Flame sect, we can bury the hatchet and provide all the resources of the Red Flame sect to you. The tall figure said. Even the East Sea Dragon Palace had sent someone over. Obviously, they valued a genius like Tianyang very much. At this moment, a dissatisfied snort suddenly sounded. The bright sky suddenly darkened. Only in the west, where rolling thunderclouds were surging, a man in a cassock stepped on the void and roared with a face full of anger. His body emitted the pressure of a half-step reaching heaven realm. Tianyang, you killed my disciple Tanyu and my Western Region Buddhist sect, disciples Guang Ming and Guang Fa. You also humiliated my Western Region Buddhist sect several times. In the Earthly Emperor Small World, you have killed countless people and are full of sins. Who dares to recruit such an evil creature? Chapter 688. Who dares to recruit such a monster? A thunderous roar rang out. Hearing this, the entire earth seemed to tremble. The terrifying pressure of a half-step heaven ascension expert was released, suppressing the entire world. In this space, from small insects to big ninth-layer sea of soul realm cultivators, at this moment, all felt it difficult to breathe. Some mortals were even almost crushed to death by this pressure. Most of the mortals fainted under this pressure. However, the instigator was still unaware. His gaze coldly looked at the people beneath his feet, then locked onto Tianyang's body. You lot, why haven't you scrammed from this monster's side yet? A thunderous roar rang out, and the aura of a half-step heaven ascension expert was released, scaring the people around Tianyang and causing them to retreat in fear. Looking at the man whose entire body was golden and emitting dazzling Buddhist light, and wearing a kasaya, these ninth-layer sea of soul realm cultivators were incomparably shocked. They didn't expect that the strongest of the few half-step heaven ascension experts of the Western regions, the current Akalanatha, had come. I wonder why the Akalanatha has come here. The beautiful woman from Nine Heavens Palace looked at the old monk in the sky and said, Although she was still incomparably frightened, she didn't have much intention of retreating. Behind her was Nine Heavens Palace. In terms of strength and background, it wasn't the slightest bit inferior to the Western region's Buddhist sections. Hearing this, the old monk's expression slightly darkened. He stretched out his hand, and a terrifying gale erupted. "This seat has come today to eliminate this world's monster," the old monk said coldly. In the next instant, the aura of a half-step heaven ascension expert was released. Apart from Ling Yuhan, everyone around Tianyang was sent flying by this aura. In today's world, if heaven ascension experts didn't appear, then half-step heaven ascension experts were enough to dominate. And this Akalanatha's cultivation base was still at the peak of half-step heaven ascension. "Evil creature, do you know what crime you've committed?" Seeing that Tianyang's surroundings had almost been cleared, the old monk smiled in satisfaction. He walked in front of Tianyang and looked down on him. Rolling waves of pressure were released from his head, feet, front, and back. Almost all directions were pressuring Tianyang. If Tianyang was an ordinary cultivator, he would have been crushed by the old monk. However, facing this pressure, Tianyang did not feel it at all. Instead, he smiled faintly. "I, Tianyang, have always acted according to my heart. What wrong have I done?" An indifferent voice slowly spread out and entered the ears of the crowd. Hearing this, everyone's faces changed, revealing expressions of disbelief and shock. This Tianyang actually dared to speak like this in front of a half-step heavenly completion stage expert? "Are you courting death?" As expected, the old monk's face darkened after hearing that. His eyes flashed with boundless killing intent as he stared at Tianyang. "What's wrong? You dare to speak to me like that? You're simply going against the orthodoxy," the old monk shouted angrily. Tianyang's face turned cold. A mere half-step in a heaven ascension dared to be so arrogant in front of him. "Going against the orthodoxy? What orthodoxy do you think you are? A bald donkey dares to say that you're following the orthodoxy of the orthodoxy? What a joke." Tianyang laughed loudly. Hearing that, the old monk's face darkened to the extreme. Rays of golden light flashed in his hand. He had already activated his killing intent. A surging wave of air burst out, pressing towards Tianyang fiercely. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression was indifferent. He was neither surprised nor happy. He had once stood at the top, and had also risen from humble beginnings. He could see the mentality of such high and mighty people very clearly. It was no problem for him to kill others. If others said something bad about him, it was a challenge to his dignity. Everyone had the right to kill them. Speaking of which, do you still remember who this guy is? Tianyang used the 10,000 paths movement technique and the path of speed, easily dodging this oppressive attack. Then, his space bag flashed, and a small jade bottle appeared in his hand. Then, Tianyang opened the cork of the bottle. A soul that was so weak that it was almost transparent, but one could still vaguely recognize its original appearance, floated out. He was wearing a kasaya and had a bald head. His eyes narrowed, as if they were flashing with a dangerous light. However, that was in the past. Now, there was only fear in his eyes. "Tianyang, let me go. Tell me, what do I have to do for you to let me go?" Sighing you, who had just come out of the small jade bottle, did not seem to understand the situation. He screamed crazily at Tianyang. "I can give you all the beauties I've collected. I'll give you all the pills I've snatched. I'll even give you all the treasures, beauties, and even male pets of my master, the immovable wisdom king. Give me a quick death." Sighing, you screamed. Hearing that, Tianyang's expression did not change. He had heard these words countless times. However, after hearing these words, the expressions of the surrounding people changed one after another. This guy seems to be the Arhat of the Western region Buddhist sect, Sighing Yu. Someone recognized Sighing Yu's soul and said in shock. Hearing that, the old monk's expression changed abruptly. Isn't it said that the Western region Buddhist sect is pure and doesn't care about women or wealth? They can get wealth for cultivation, but women have nothing to do with cultivation, right? It's even less about men. However, This Sang Yu is slightly better. He only has beauties, but he's a male pet of his master, the immovable Wisdom King. So that's the nature of the Western Region Buddhist sect. TSK. The cultivators disgust. Hearing that, the old monk's expression turned even more ashen. He did not expect that Tianyang would spare the soul of his disciple, Sang Yu. He did not expect that Sang Yu had reached the point where he only wanted a quick death. In fact, he had even given up on him. Beaster starred. The old monk was completely enraged. He roared into the sky. Rays of Buddhist light flashed and exploded in the surroundings. Above the 9 heavens, layers of thunderclouds surged. However, at this moment, the small jade bottle in Tianyang's hand suddenly trembled. Sang Yu turned around in shock and looked at the old monk. Master, you're here. Save me. Sang Yu roared crazily. Hearing that, the old monk felt even angrier. This unfilial disciple, he was caught by the enemy due to his lack of skills, but he did not know how to commit suicide. Now his reputation as the immovable Wisdom King was ruined. Disciple, I'm coming to save you right now. Although he was extremely furious, the old monk was someone who had cultivated for hundreds of years. With a roar, he charged forward brazenly. However, the old monk was fast, but Tianyang was even faster. Having cultivated the Tao of speed, in terms of speed, he was not afraid of anyone other than cultivators of Heaven Ascension Stage 2 and above. Take it that I'm being benevolent today. I don't want anything you said. Tianyang smiled faintly. The next moment, he extended his finger and pierced the glabella of Sang Yu's soul. Now, I'll give you a quick death. Boom! The origin of the soul was shattered. Chapter 689. One sword killed. The most powerful genius of this generation of Buddhists in the Western region, known as the son of Buddha, the disciple of Akalanatha, Siyu, dead. Just like that, he died at Tianyang's hands. How dare he? Everyone was incomparably shocked as they looked at Tianyang, who had a faint smile on his face. Normally, if they ran into a half-step reaching Heaven Realm expert, even if they were all spirit kings above the 5th level of Sea of Soul Realm, they would tremble with fear and take a detour. But in the end, Tianyang, a half-step Ascension Realm elite, was standing right in front of him, and he had actually killed his disciple. The old monk was thoroughly enraged. No matter what, Siyu was his disciple after all. Among the Buddhists in the Western region, he was the one most likely to reach the Heaven Ascension realm in the younger generation. Although the old monk had the intention to kill, it was only killing intent. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have the slightest intention to kill. After all, in the old monk's mind, Siyu was the future hope of Buddhists. However, he was dead. Dead at Tianyang's hands, his body and soul destroyed, without any hope of resurrection. You actually dared to kill my disciple, kid. Give me your life. Half a step into the heaven-level martial skill, Buddha grasps the world. The old monk roared crazily, and in the next moment, his surging true yuan circulated. Rays of golden Buddha light burst out from his body, and in the next moment, with the powerful might of a half-step into the Heaven Ascension realm, he ruthlessly attacked Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. His expression was extremely cold, and the void sword embryo in his hand suddenly slashed out. Sky-level sword art, 4th sword, firmament. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, the true yuan in his body surged and circulated. With an incomparably tyrannical aura, a sword light that could trample all living things and reach the firmament ruthlessly attacked. At the same time, Tianyang also released the power of his martial spirit. If this old monk's strength exceeded his imagination, then he would immediately use the sky-devouring secret technique. Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded, and surging chi waves surged out. The surrounding space trembled, and cracks appeared in the space. The surrounding spirit kings retreated one after another, revealing a look of horror. As far as they were concerned, the old monk was half a step away from the reaching heaven state. It would be a piece of cake for him to deal with a Tianyang. Although Tianyang had forced back old Fiendhua, who was at the 9th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. With a single sword strike, he was still unable to withstand a single blow from a half-step Heavenly Completion Realm expert. However, reality had given them a big slap in the face. Facing the old monk's half-step Heaven-tier martial skill, not only was Tianyang not afraid in the slightest, he even brazenly made a move and clashed with the old monk. Boom! And at this moment, the sword beam and Buddha's seal once again erupted with an attack. Following that, the true essence in Tianyang's body instantly went berserk. The divine desolate heavenly spirit art began to circulate. Break for me! Tianyang's expression was cold. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone with supreme Xinguang as he attacked. Seeing this, the old monk's expression changed. He was just about to adjust his true essence to meet the attack, but his Buddha seal was shattered by Tianyang's sword. Before he could counterattack, he was blasted away. The monastic robe draped over his body was easily sliced apart by this swift and fierce sword. As for the old monk, he was directly forced to spit out a mouthful of blood from the terrifying impact of the firmament sword. Fresh blood sprinkled out, scattering into small blood droplets in the air and falling to the ground. Some of them landed on the bodies of the other experts present. This, touching his face and looking at the blood droplets on his fingers, the Spirit King expert was first stunned, then his expression changed greatly. Immovable Wisdom King was forced back. The Spirit King roared in disbelief. Hearing this, everyone woke up from their shock and looked at the dreamlike scene before them. What did they see? A peak 6th level Sea of Soul Realm expert had forced back a half-step Heavenly Completion Realm expert in a direct confrontation. Little bastard, you actually dared to injure me. Meanwhile, the old monk suddenly stabilized himself, and his eyes seemed to be on the verge of spitting flames. Rays of Buddhist light flashed from his body, and in the next moment, it transformed into an extremely fierce and terrifying seal. Low-grade Heaven-tier martial skill, Buddha's palm. The old monk roared. Rolling true essence surged and transformed into an extremely terrifying palm print. It shattered the sky and ruthlessly attacked towards Tianyang. The earth trembled and even cracked open. The surrounding crowd instantly went into an uproar, revealing shocked and frightened expressions. Low-grade Heaven-tier martial skill. Tianyang's expression also slightly constricted. Heaven-tier martial skill. Besides him and the people around him, almost no one had seen it before. Although he knew that coming from the holy land of martial Tao, possessing a Heaven-tier martial skill was inevitable. Even Long Taiji knew the Dragon King Divine Fist, it was just that he was not proficient in it. However, seeing the old monk use a low-grade Heaven-tier martial skill, he was also slightly surprised. It seems that I have to use the Sky-Devouring secret skill. Tianyang muttered to himself. If the old monk did not use the Buddha's palm, he was still confident that he could deal with him or even suppress and defeat him. However, once the low-grade Heaven-tier martial skill was used, Tianyang had to use his true strength. Although he was confident, he was not blindly confident. Wait, my lord, let me do it. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in Tianyang's soul sea. Hearing that, Tianyang was slightly stunned. The voice came from Sanguinati, who was hiding in the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. All right, Tianyang's lips curled up slightly. He chuckled lightly and took a few steps back to leave some space. Seeing that, the old monk suddenly smiled sinisterly. Want to run? It's useless. In front of a low-grade Heaven-tier martial skill, no matter how fast you are, you will only die. Pay with your life for my disciple. Buddha's palm kill. The old monk roared wildly, and the terrifying true essence of a half-step Heaven Ascension realm was completely released. For a moment, countless cultivators were aghast. Even those at the 9th level of the Sea of Soul realm were suppressed and could not move. Rolling pressure enveloped the entire Earth Emperor city. However, when this pressure rushed in front of Tianyang, it was like a spring breeze turning into water, dissipating into nothingness. The old monk was slightly stunned, and then a dazzling bloody light appeared in everyone's line of sight. The terrifying aura of a second-level heaven ascension realm exploded. Sanguinati, attack! You dare to attack my lord, old bald donkey. You have guts. There was only a skeleton, but it emitted boundless pressure. Sanguinati casually waved his hand, and the sword light tore the Buddha's palm into pieces. Then, the soul fire pulsed without emotion, looking directly at the old monk. The aura of a second-level heaven ascension realm was completely released. The old monk looked at the skeleton in front of him in disbelief, and the muscles all over his body actually trembled unconsciously. His vocal cords seemed to be out of control. Tong! The old monk swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty and spat out a word. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Tong? Chapter 690. Reaching Heaven Realm Warrior. The old monk's voice was like a completely different person. He looked at Sanguinati as if he had seen a ghost and roared involuntarily. Hearing this, the entire Earth Emperor city was shaken. Countless people looked at Sanguinati, who was only a skeleton and looked like a real ghost. They were extremely shocked. Reaching Heaven Realm Warrior? This skeleton was a reaching Heaven Realm Warrior? Doubts immediately arose in everyone's hearts. Reaching Heaven Realm Warriors were so high and mighty. How could they become a skeleton? How could they work for a mere peak 6th layer C of Soul Realm youth? You dare to offend my lord. You got guts, you old bald donkey. Sanguinati's soul flame flickered unceasingly. He looked at the old monk, who was trembling all over and almost pissing his pants, with a faint smile. Western region Buddhism talked about benevolence, righteousness, and morality, and all living things were equal. But in fact, their actions were similar to his, who had killed to prove his Tao. They were almost like a madman. They were even more despicable and shameless than him, who had killed people in a straightforward manner. Sanguinati wouldn't have the slightest reverence for such a hypocritical sect, even if it was a holy land of martial arts. Moreover, 10,000 years ago, Western region Buddhism, which only had 2 or 3 reaching heaven realm warriors, didn't deserve to be called a holy land of martial arts. I was wrong. I only beg my lord to spare my life. The old monk's whole body trembled as he begged for mercy loudly. Hearing this, Sanguinati's soul flame didn't change in the slightest. He only looked at the old monk coldly. The blue-white flame burned in his eye sockets, looking extremely horrifying. Sanguinati's face was also ice-cold, filled with killing intent, without any mercy. This was his nature. Otherwise, he wouldn't have killed to prove his Tao. Moreover, the old monk's eyes flashed with a trace of resentment, which couldn't escape his gaze. You were wrong? No, you weren't wrong. Sanguinati smiled lightly. The long sword in his hand released a dazzling blood-red light, surging with killing intent. He didn't conceal it all. My lord killed your disciple. You didn't do anything wrong. Sanguinati said with a smile. Upon hearing this, the old monk's heart trembled even more. He knew that the kinder Sanguinati's tone was, the stronger his anger was. From the looks of it, he seemed to have completely and thoroughly angered this heavenly completion stage expert of unknown origins. I don't dare, the old monk hurriedly said. Suddenly, his eyes moved, and he looked at the burning soul fire in Sanguinati's eyes. As a disciple of the Buddhist school of the Western regions, the holy land of martial arts, and as a half-step into the heavenly completion realm, he could naturally tell that something was very wrong with Sanguinati's current state. Nonsense. If it was right, Sanguinati wouldn't be this skinny. I don't know where this heavenly completion stage expert came from, but his condition doesn't seem to be very good. In other words, I, the Akalanatha, may not be suppressed by this fellow. The old monk's thoughts spun rapidly. Looking at that soul fire, his heart suddenly shook. At this time, Sanguinati had just opened his mouth when the old monk's face immediately turned fierce. You want to attack me with just a skeleton? Die for me. Half-step into the heavenly step martial technique, Buddha's illumination. The old monk crazily roared. Boundless Buddha's light poured out in torrents, bringing with it a surging soul attack power that fiercely pressed down on Sanguinati's soul. He was gambling. He was gambling that Sanguinati's soul strength was his weakness. He was gambling that Sanguinati's soul strength wouldn't be able to withstand his sudden soul attack. Seeing this, Sanguinati's face also changed. Boundless bloody light erupted from the long sword in his hand, and he was just about to attack. But at this time, a sword light flew past. What's the point of talking so much nonsense? To deal with this kind of bald donkey, just directly cut him down. Tianyang's indifferent voice sounded. In the next moment, the firmament sword light swept across the old monk's neck. A smooth cut appeared between the old monk's head and neck. Then, under the old monk's incredulous gaze, his head and body separated just like that. Blood soared into the sky like a pillar. Then, an angry roar that came from the soul shattered the old monk's soul. A soul attack that came from the soul of a peak ascension realm expert, Nether Spirit's Wrath. Bang! A terrifying sound rang out, and the old monk's body instantly turned into fine powder. Even his soul was directly crushed. The old monk, the Western region's Buddhist sex Akalanatha, a half-step into Ascension Realm expert, could be said to be one of the top experts in the entire Central region. Dead. Everyone was shocked. Akalanatha, he's dead. That's a half-step into Ascension Realm expert. He actually died. Moreover, he died at the hands of a peak 6th level C of Soul Realm youth. How is this possible? Everyone cried out in alarm. Although Tianyang's reputation was very resounding in the eastern part of the Central region, it wasn't very famous in other parts of the Central region. When Tianyang became the champion of the martial arts competition, they were all incomparably shocked. Now, they saw an expert like the old monk die at the hands of Tianyang. The shock in their hearts became even greater. And at this time, Sanguinati's entire body trembled, and he came to his senses. The old monk's sudden attack was really too terrifying and too impossible to guard against. Caught off guard, even Sanguinati couldn't avoid being hit. But after the old monk died, his Buddha's light illumination lost its foundation and instantly dissipated. Only then did Sanguinati react. The sword light in his hand had just been spat out, and he immediately withdrew it. He was dumbstruck as he looked at the old monk who died instantly in front of him. If you want to show off, you have to look at the time and place. And at this time, Tianyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Sanguinati immediately felt ashamed. Originally, he was going to take the head of the old monk in an instant, but he ended up like this, and Tianyang had to take action. Sir, I was wrong. Seeing this, the surrounding people were once again stupefied. That was a reaching heaven realm expert, an existence countless times stronger than the old monk. If the old monk was an expert at the peak, then Sanguinati was at the peak. The gap between the peak and the peak wasn't just a little bit. But even Sanguinati knelt before Tianyang and lowered his head to admit his mistake. What on earth was this youth's background? Even the people of the Star Swordplay sect were at a loss. Sir Tianyang, who had saved the Star Swordplay sect, could actually dispatch a reaching heaven realm expert? What secret did this Tianyang have that they didn't know? And at this time, just as everyone was shocked, Ling Yuhan, who was behind Tianyang, suddenly changed her expression. Master! Tianyang raised his eyebrows, but he didn't look at Ling Yuhan. Instead, he raised his head. I've just taken care of one, and now 2 more troubles have come. Tianyang said with a faint smile. Hearing this, the crowd was slightly stunned. Then, a torrent of demonic power suddenly swept across the entire sky. 2 young men with 9 tails stood in the air, looking down at everyone indifferently. We've come here under our father's order to rescue the princess. You humans, hand over the empress of our race. The 2 young men with 9 tails looked indifferent as they spoke condescendingly. Hearing this, the crowd was stunned. Chapter 691. Nine-Tailed Fox Clan. Someone recognized the identity of the 2 young men and exclaimed in surprise. Hearing that, everyone's eyes narrowed slightly. The Nine-Tailed Fox clan was an extremely prosperous and powerful demon clan in ancient times. Although the Nine-Tailed Fox clan had suffered many disasters and was much weaker than the ancient era's peak, it did not mean that the Nine-Tailed Fox clan had become completely weak. After all, no matter how weak they were only weaker than before. The current Nine-Tailed Fox clan had already risen again after suffering a great disaster a long time ago. The current clan leader of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan was the Demon Emperor of the entire demon clan. He had a cultivation base of Heaven Ascension Stage 5 and above. Nine-Tailed Fox clan? Looks like it has something to do with Yuhan. Tianyang's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. He didn't think that the two Nine-Tailed Fox clan youths had come just to join in the excitement of the martial arts conference. Hand over the Empress. Otherwise, all of you will die here. The Nine-Tailed Fox clan youth sneered. Hearing that, everyone's faces changed. Looking at the two Nine-Tailed Fox clan youths, their faces became extremely ugly. All of them would die here? Not to mention who the Empress was, just the arrogant tone of the two Nine-Tailed Fox clan youths was enough to infuriate them to the extreme. Since when did people from the Demon Clan dare to be so impudent in the Human Clan's territory? Arrogant brats. I'd like to see if the Nine-Tailed Fox clan that has risen again has the prestige of ancient times. A middle-aged man suddenly rushed out and looked at the two Nine-Tailed Fox clan youths as he roared. The aura of peak 8th Sea of Soul Realm was instantly released. It's the Mountain River Sect's Grand Elder, Jiang Zhongdao. Jiang Zhongdao is a powerful existence who cultivates both true yuan and physical body. His strength isn't inferior to a 9th Sea of Soul Realm expert. These two Nine-Tailed Fox clan youths are so arrogant. They'll definitely be slapped in the face by Jiang Zhongdao. A young man who was infuriated by the two young men from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan said excitedly. Hearing that, everyone nodded. In their opinion, they were merely two arrogant youngsters from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. With Jiang Zhongdao's help, they would definitely succeed. However, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. Was that really the case? Peak of Sea of Soul's realm? The two young men from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan glanced at Jiang Zhongdao and sneered. Their handsome faces were full of arrogance and disdain. With such strength, you dare to be impudent in front of us, brothers? Get lost. One of the young men laughed coldly. A purple ball of demonic power condensed in his hand, and he threw it out fiercely. Petty tricks, Jiang Zhongdao sneered. He did not care about this ball of demonic energy at all. Earth-tier, peerless martial skill, Mountain River Heaven suppressing palm. Jiang Zhongdao roared. His peak of Sea of Soul's realm aura surged. In the next moment, a profound and majestic palm print suddenly condensed. This palm seemed to be able to shatter mountains and rivers, oppressing heaven and earth. With an incomparable power, it fiercely attacked the ball of demonic power. Boom! The Mountain River Heaven suppressing palm and the ball of demonic power collided fiercely. Seeing this, Jiang Zhongdao revealed a disdainful smile. But in the next moment, this smile froze. The Mountain River Sky suppressing palm was as weak as a piece of paper in front of this ball of demonic power. In less than a second, the entire Mountain River Sky suppressing palm exploded violently, and that terrifying ball of demonic power smashed heavily into Jiang Zhongdao's body. Pooh! A mouthful of blood spurted out. Jiang Zhongdao's body flew out like a cannonball. A few of his ribs were broken. The most terrifying thing was that the purple ball of demonic power had not dissipated. It pushed Jiang Zhongdao's body and shot out explosively into the distance. In a short while, Jiang Zhongdao's figure could no longer be seen. At this moment, the aura of the two young men from the Nine-Tailed Fox clan leaked out. Half-step to Heavenly Completion Realm, Peak. The Western region Buddhist Akalanatha was from the Holy Land of Martial Arts. Although he was extremely talented, he was only a half-step to Heavenly Completion Realm. Although he was considered one of the best among the half-step to Heavenly Completion Realm, he was still lacking compared to a true peak half-step to Heavenly Completion Realm. But now there were two of them, and they were so young. Everyone's faces were filled with shock and disbelief. What was wrong with this world? Even Jiang Zhongdao was defeated. Who are these two nine-tailed foxes? Spirit King Glorious Sun. Jun Tian's expression was ugly. Although he was called Spirit King Glorious Sun, and his cultivation was on par with Jiang Zhongdao's, in terms of strength, he was still slightly weaker than Jiang Zhongdao. However, Jiang Zhongdao was easily defeated by these two nine-tailed fox clan youths. Who were these two youths? Lowly humans indeed. You only rely on your numbers to dominate the entire continent. The nine-tailed fox clan youth who casually broke Jiang Zhongdao's attack looked arrogant as he looked down at the crowd and mocked them. Hearing this, everyone's faces turned pale. This was the martial arts conference, Earth Imperial City. In the end, they were slapped in the face in their own territory when they had so many elites. They could not even return the favor. This kind of grievance made them feel extremely uncomfortable. I am the second prince of the nine-tailed fox clan, Zi Wangtian. I am the first prince of the nine-tailed fox clan, Zi Wangtian. The two nine-tailed fox clan youths laughed loudly. Hearing this, the crowd's faces changed slightly as they looked at the two people in the sky in disbelief. The first prince and second prince of the nine-tailed fox clan. The top 5 prodigies of the demon clan's prodigy roll, Zi Wangtian and Zi Wangtian. One of them exclaimed in shock. Hearing this, the others were confused. However, in the next moment, that person's words, their faces were filled with astonishment. The demon clan's prodigy roll is not the spirit roll of the human clan. It only includes those below the Spirit King realm. The demon clan's prodigy roll does not limit one's realm. As long as one is under 300 years old, they can be included. The first prince and second prince of the nine-tailed fox clan are also famous prodigies of the demon clan. The first prince, Zi Wangtian, is at the peak of the half-step ascension realm. He is ranked 3rd on the demon clan's prodigy roll. The second prince, Zi Wangtian, is also at the peak of the half-step ascension realm. He is ranked 5th. That person exclaimed in shock. Hearing this, the others' faces changed drastically. If that was the case, wouldn't it mean that they were the strongest among the demon clan under the age of 300? One should know that 10,000 years ago, when the Tianji Sword Emperor was crowned emperor, he was not even 300 years old. He might have been even younger, but he was still more than 100 years old. These two had reached the peak of the half-step ascension realm before they were 300 years old. Such talent was terrifying. We have prodigies of the human clan too, but there are none now, someone said through gritted teeth. Today was only the end of the martial arts conference. To the true prodigies, the martial arts conference was not that important. Hence, Zi Wangtian and Zi Wangtian could be so impudent here. Ants will always be ants. They only know how to find excuses to cover up their own cowardice. The second prince, Zi Wangtian, looked at the crowd beneath his feet and laughed coldly. Then, the power of his bloodline surged out and instantly locked onto Ling Yuhan's location. Big brother, I found her, Zi Wangtian said in a low voice. Zi Wangtian's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he charged toward Ling Yuhan. However, a beam of sword light blocked his path, followed by a cold and disdainful laugh. Chapter 692. 2 half-step to heavenly completion realm, cultivators dare to snatch Yuhan away. Tianyang's indifferent and disdainful voice was heard. That sword radiance also released a terrifying light that shook the sky. What? Seeing this, Zi Wangtian's face darkened, and anger flashed across his arrogant face. He turned his head and looked at Tianyang furiously. It's you. You're blocking our way. Zi Wangtian shouted angrily, and the demonic power of a half-step to heavenly completion realm surged as if he was about to attack at any moment. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled disdainfully, and the great void sword embryo in his hand emitted a sharp light. It's me. We're here on Father's orders to save the princess from the calamity of the human tribe. How dare you stop us? Zi Wangtian also spoke coldly, and an aura that was even more powerful than Zi Wangtian's was slowly released. All of a sudden, The pressure that had been unleashed on everyone in the city was now focused on Tianyang. An extremely violent pressure surged out, as if it wanted to crush Tianyang into dust. However, seeing this, Tianyang only smiled faintly and did not take it to heart. Two half-step to heavenly completion realm cultivators wanted to use pressure to suppress him. They were still 108,000 years away. I don't know what the princess is. I only know that this is the land of the human tribe, and the person you want to take away is my disciple, Tianyang said coldly, and a dangerous light flashed in his eyes. Tianxiao soared out. The aura of the heaven-class martial soul instantly swept across the entire earthly imperial city. Compared to the Akalanatha and the current nine-tailed fox, the two supreme talents, the terrifying pressure exploded violently. This pressure didn't come from his true origin, but from his martial spirit. It belonged to his martial spirit. A heaven-class martial soul was a legendary existence, and the pressure of a heaven-class martial soul could easily suppress these people. What? Seeing this, Zetian Wang's face changed, and he looked at Tianyang in disbelief. How could this human brat have such a terrifying martial soul? They were also born after the great destruction of their civilization and were able to awaken martial souls. Naturally, they could clearly sense the power of Tianyang's martial soul. Their martial spirits were already the most compatible with their purple flameheart foxes. The purple flameheart fox martial spirit was a high-grade Earth-tier martial spirit. However, after Tianyang released a trace of the sky firmament sword's aura, it was still trembling. What the hell was going on? Your disciple? How dare you say that the princess of the nine-tailed fox clan is your disciple? However, although his martial spirit was shaken, the purple heavenly king's face remained dark as he glared at Tianyang. A purple fox fire burned fiercely in his hand. Ling Yuhan was the princess of the nine-tailed fox clan, and Tianyang was Ling Yuhan's master. Didn't that mean that Tianyang was of the same generation as the demon emperor of their clan? How is that possible? How dare you insult the demon emperor of our clan? You're courting death. The purple heavenly king roared angrily. Demonic power surged out of his body as he charged towards Tianyang. High-grade Earth-tier martial technique, sky-burning fox fire fist. The demonic power of a half-step to heaven ascension realm surged out violently and turned into a sea of fire. It gathered on the purple heavenly king's fist and charged towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression did not change. His expression was still indifferent. The great void sword embryo in his hand suddenly flashed with an extremely sharp light. Sky sword art, first sword sky soaring. Boom! The extremely sharp sword light collided violently with the purple heavenly king's sky-burning foxfire fist. The ground shook and the space shattered. The moment the purple heavenly king and Tianyang collided, the surrounding space cracked like glass. In the next moment, it suddenly shattered. Good chance. Seeing that Tianyang and the purple heavenly king were fighting, the purple heavenly king immediately sneered and charged out in a flash. However, Tianyang also noticed the purple heavenly king's actions and roared. Sanguinati, here! Upon receiving the order, Sanguinati's figure flashed and charged out with a long sword in hand. Bang! The purple heavenly king's demonic claws collided with Sanguinati's long sword, and an ear-piercing sound rang out. Sanguinati's soul fire fluctuated slowly. He held his long sword and blocked in front of Ling Yuhan. As for the purple heavenly king, he was sent flying countless miles away by this collision, and blood spurted out of his mouth. He was also extremely shocked. This is Heaven Ascension Realm Elite. The purple heavenly king roared in disbelief. His eyes shone with disbelief. Why would a Heaven Ascension Realm Elite appear here? Moreover, he was being controlled by that human youth. How is this possible? Elites of that level all had their own pride. Even if Tianyang was his benefactor, without strength to intimidate him, it was absolutely impossible to control him so easily. Moreover, this skeleton-like Heaven Ascension Realm Elite didn't seem to be an ordinary Heaven Ascension Realm elite. Even his all-out attack could be easily blocked and countered. A Heaven Ascension Realm elite of this level had probably already surpassed some of their nine-tailed Fox clan's peak elders. The purple Heavenly King's face was filled with disbelief. However, a bloody light flickered in Sanguinati's hand once again. 7 killing sword art, first strike. Sanguinati roared loudly. The long sword in his hand condensed 100,000 feet of bloody light, and he ruthlessly charged towards the purple Heavenly King. What? Seeing this, the purple Heavenly King's expression changed greatly. The purple Heavenly King, who was fighting with Tianyang, also had a change in expression. He looked at the 6th level C of Soul Realm elite in front of him, who couldn't make him retreat a single step no matter how he fought. His expression instantly darkened to the extreme. Human ant, scram for me. Low-grade heaven tier martial technique, ancestral fox descends. The purple Heavenly King roared loudly. Rolling demonic power was released, and the bloodline power belonging to the pure-blooded purple flame heart fox instantly went berserk. A massive nine-tailed fox phantom appeared in front of the purple Heavenly King. In the next instant, a trace of a strange pattern suddenly appeared on the purple Heavenly King's face. Immediately after, the 9 purple-white fox tails swung at extreme speed, and an incomparably tyrannical attack was brazenly released. Die for me! The purple Heavenly King roared furiously. And at this time, Tianyang's expression also slightly darkened. The corners of his mouth curled into a trace of smile. Martial soul talent, devour heaven. Tianyang roared explosively. The sky firmament sword in his hand instantly released a 9-colored Xingguang. Even the great void sword embryo was tainted with a trace of 9-colored color. A berserk and terrifying devouring power erupted from Tianyang's body. Immediately, the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chi, the mountains, rivers, trees, true essence, demonic power, martial soul, demonic soul, and even the myriad phenomena of this world all transformed into an incomparably tyrannical power and poured into Tianyang's body. The divine desolate heaven spirit art circulated at extreme speed. Tianyang took a deep breath and then exhaled. A mouthful of turbid air expelled all the impurities in his body. Boom! 7th level C of Soul Realm. 8th level C of Soul Realm. 9th level C of Soul Realm. Chapter 693. Half-Step Ascension Realm. An extremely powerful aura leaked out from Tianyang's body. Sensing this aura, Tianwang's face instantly turned extremely ugly. At the same time, he also revealed a trace of fear. What has happened? Wasn't this human kid in front of him only at the peak of the 6th level of the Sea of Soul Realm? Even if he used some secret technique, he should at most be at the peak of the 7th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. In the end, Tianyang's cultivation seemed to have taken drugs, instantly soaring to almost the same level as him. How is this possible? What kind of demonic technique did you use? Tianwang roared in disbelief. Hearing this, Tianyang was instantly speechless. Demonic technique? You guys are the demon race. Okay? However, Tianyang's expression did not change much. Instead, he chuckled and looked at the huge ancestral fox's shadow. The great void sword embryo in his hand circulated with a bloody light. Endless surging aura was released. Damn it! Ancestral fox's power. Kill this person with me. Tianwang roared, and the true essence in his body gushed out crazily. Demonic power was released, and the ancestral fox's shadow also shone with a boundless purple light. It spat out a blazing flame from its mouth, fiercely attacking Tianyang. Level 5 Spiritual Fire, Purple Flame Heart Fox Fire, a flame exclusive to pure-blooded purple flame heart foxes. Tianyang looked at the incoming purple flame and sighed softly. Then he smiled faintly. Since that's the case, Annihilation Heavenly Flame, come out. Boom! A black gold light flashed, and the black gold level 5 Spiritual Fire, Annihilation Heavenly Flame, appeared. Within Tianyang's body, the divine dragon's core also bloomed with rays of light. Rolling dragon power poured into the annihilation heavenly flame, and even carried a trace of divine dragon blood essence. Roar! The annihilation heavenly flame roared at the sky and turned into a huge black gold fire dragon, charging towards the huge purple flame heart fox fire. You actually have a spiritual fire too. Seeing this, Zetian Wang's face changed and he roared in disbelief. Spiritual fire was a rare item. Ordinary geniuses might not even encounter one in their lifetime. Even in Tianyang's previous life, he had only obtained a second-level spiritual fire and had used it all the way up to the heavenly ascension stage before being eliminated. From this, one could see how rare spiritual fires were. In the end, not only did he take out the purple flaming heart fox fire, Tianyang also took out a powerful spiritual fire that was not weaker than the purple flaming heart fox fire. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. In order to avoid being affected by the aftershocks, they had already retreated to the edge of earthly Imperial City. At the same time, most of the people in earthly Imperial City had run away. It could be said that the earthly Imperial City was now an empty city. Even so, everyone could feel the terrifying heat that made their hearts palpitate. It was as if a slight tremble could burn them into ashes. Was such a powerful move really something that two geniuses who had yet to reach the heavenly completion stage could execute? The new generation excels the old. Forget about the purple heavenly king. I heard that he's almost 200 years old. Although his talent is terrifying, it's not unacceptable. An elder paused, and his gaze shifted from the purple heavenly king to Tianyang. As for the heavenly king, according to what I know, he's not even 20 years old. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank to the extreme. They looked at the elder who was known as a know-it-all among cultivators in disbelief. Elder Amo, is what you said true? It's said. However, this information was obtained from the Northern Wilderness region. The Northern Wilderness region is where the Sword King Tianyang rose to prominence. The elder who was called Elder Amo sighed. Hearing this, everyone's hearts skipped a beat. The information came from the Northern Wilderness region, where Tianyang rose to prominence. Then it must be true. Among the crowd, Spirit King Gloria's son, Jun Tian, had a complicated expression. Back then, Tianyang was just a weak young man who was forced to fight for his life by venerable Ironbone. Now, even the purple heavenly king, who was much stronger than venerable Ironbone, could suppress and even defeat him. The young man who was fighting in the center of the earthly imperial city with the purple heavenly king, who had been famous for decades in the wasteland demon region and was now ranked third on the demon clan's prodigy roll, was really not even 20 years old. Before he was 20 years old, he had already become a giant in this world that countless people looked up to. In the center of the earthly imperial city, Tianyang did not know that a group of spirit kings were discussing on the city wall at the edge of the earthly imperial city. However, just as they had guessed, he was currently suppressing the purple heavenly king. Damn it! The black gold fire dragon formed by the annihilation heavenly fire was constantly tearing at the ancestral fox formed by the purple flame heart fox fire. As for the ancestral fox's summoner, the purple heavenly king himself, he was also being suppressed by the heavenly sun. Previously, the purple heavenly king could still fight evenly with Tianyang, but now, the purple heavenly king could not even escape. It was clear that he was not using his full strength. Strike after strike, each strike landed accurately on the purple heavenly king's body. It was so precise that it was only a second away from hitting the purple heavenly king's body. Then, at the moment when the purple heavenly king thought that he had blocked it, he broke through the defense that the purple heavenly king had condensed with all his strength, leaving a light strike on the purple heavenly king's body. Once or twice was fine, but Tianyang's every strike was like this. Although Tianyang's cultivation was still not comparable to the purple heavenly king's after using the heaven-devouring secret skill, killing the purple heavenly king in an instant was as easy as flipping his hand. You humiliated me. The purple heavenly king roared angrily. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows, and the great void sword embryo in his hand paused. Don't tell me you don't want me to humiliate you. If I don't humiliate you, then this sword won't just land on your body lightly, Tianyang said calmly. Hearing this, the purple heavenly king's heart trembled, and he immediately shut his mouth. However, I didn't kill you not just because it's fun. If it was in the past, I would have chopped anyone who dared to attack Yuhan into minced meat. For guys like you two who are not human, I would have eaten you directly. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the purple heavenly king's heart trembled, and he immediately shut his mouth. He did not want to be eaten. Seeing that the purple heavenly king had completely given in, Tianyang chuckled and looked into the distance. Sanguinati, that's enough, right? Yes, sir. As soon as Tianyang spoke, Sanguinati turned into a ray of bloody light and carried the purple heavenly king over like a chicken. He said, Sir, what are your orders? Nothing much. Leave these two here first, Tianyang said, then waved at Ling Yuhan. Yuhan, come here. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Then she nodded and flew over. She did not attack, previously not because she was afraid, but because Tianyang did not allow her to. However, she could not understand why Tianyang did not allow her to do so. Now, the main character is here. You can also explain why you came all the way from the Wasteland Demon region. Tianyang squatted down and used the Great Void Sword embryo to poke the unconscious Purple Heavenly King. Hearing this, the Purple Heavenly King, who did not want to be eaten, could not care about his miserable brother. He squatted down obediently, hugged his head with both hands, and said, Imperial Father said that his daughter is here. He told us to come and bring her back. Now that we are here, we realized, the Purple Heavenly King said. Hearing this, Tianyang narrowed his eyes slightly, and Ling Yuhan's heart trembled violently. At this moment, the Purple Heavenly King pointed at Ling Yuhan. Chapter 694. The Demon King's Daughter. When these 4 words appeared in everyone's mind, they were all shocked. The Demon King was the current emperor of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. He was a powerful being above Heaven Ascension Realm Level 5. He was the emperor of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan. The bloodline power of such an existence, even if only a trace of it leaked out, was enough to create a nearly pure-blooded, powerful member of the Demon Clan. The Purple Sky King and Ziwang Tian were born from a union of the current emperor of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan and another powerful existence from the Fox clan. The bloodline power in their bodies was also exceptionally powerful. Otherwise, after Tianyang used the sky-devouring secret skill, these 2 fellows would have been dead. I think you're talking nonsense, Sanguinati said coldly. Although he didn't know Ling Yuhan's background, he knew that Ling Yuhan had been with Tianyang since the beginning. She wasn't in the central region. She was more than half a continent away from the Wasteland Demon region. Ling Yuhan was the Demon King's daughter. Was this a joke? Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. He didn't expect Sanguinati to be so merciless. He sighed. That's the truth. It's useless even if you don't believe it. If I'm not wrong, Ling Yuhan was probably found in the northern wilderness region. Tianyang said. Tianyang frowned when he heard that. The northern wilderness region. However, a place name couldn't prove anything. There were many demons in the northern wilderness region. Furthermore, it's in the area of the Arctic nation, Tianyang said. Tianyang and Ling Yuhan's expressions changed when they heard that. The northern wilderness region couldn't prove anything. However, with the addition of the blizzard state, it was as persuasive as iron. The northern wilderness region was the barren land in the northernmost part of the continent. It was still somewhat famous. This guy might be talking nonsense about the northern wilderness region. However, in the Arctic state of the northern wilderness region, the Blizzard Nation was just an insignificant nation in the northern wilderness region. The strongest person there was only the Lingyun sect master, Li Lingyun, who was at the 4th or 5th level of the origin transformation stage. An essence transformation realm cultivator was not even an ant in the central region or the desolate demon region. Violet Heavenly King actually knew of such a remote place. Tell me everything you know. Tianyong said faintly. He had a guess in his heart. If his previous guess was baseless, then now he had a basis. When Tianyong heard this, he struggled for a while. It was obvious that he did not want to speak. However, when Sanguinati's long sword rested on his neck, he immediately understood. Even if he didn't want to, he still had to. All right, even the nine-tailed fox clan's royal family. This is a secret among secrets. Even we didn't know about it before. Now, outsiders like you know about it. Heavenly King Z sighed and began to explain. It was about the story of the current emperor of the demon clan, the nine-tailed fox emperor, more than 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago, the nine-tailed fox clan had already prospered. At that time, the nine-tailed fox emperor had not yet become an emperor, but he had a certain level of strength. A Heaven Ascension Stage, Level 3 expert, was the strongest of the strongest in any place in the continent. No matter how big the Heaven continent was, he could easily traverse it. At that time, the nine-tailed fox emperor had not yet inherited the throne. Although he already had 2 sons who had made a name for themselves, he was still very wild in his heart. When he was strong, no one dared to restrain him. Without the restriction of the throne, the nine-tailed fox emperor naturally had the idea of traveling around. He ran all the way to the northern wilderness region. Unfortunately, he was in a small nation in the northern wilderness region, the Blizzard Nation. He fell in love with an ordinary village girl. More than 10 years was neither long nor short. At that time, the nine-tailed fox emperor, who was forced into a marriage, tasted love for the first time. He was so happy that he forgot about home. Therefore, a Heaven Ascension Stage Level 3 expert actually lived in an ordinary little mountain village where even cultivators were rarely seen. He lived together with that village girl. However, when a nine-tailed fox emperor received a message from the nine-tailed fox clan and returned to the demon wilderness region to handle some matters, the little mountain village was attacked by bandits. The village girl was just an ordinary mortal. Although the nine-tailed fox empress had lived with her for more than 10 years and had subtly strengthened her physique, how could she be a match for those ferocious bandits? When the nine-tailed fox emperor received the news and broke through space to rush over, the entire little mountain village had already become a river of blood. Even the daughter he had with the village girl, who had yet to open her eyes, was nowhere to be found. In the end, the enraged nine-tailed fox emperor directly found the lair of the bandits and uprooted them in an instant. Following that, he almost hollowed out the ground of the main peak of the fearsome Beast Mountain range and buried the people of the little mountain village. The village girl's bones, in particular, were recovered one by one and pieced together to be buried in the center. However, that daughter of his could never be found again. After returning, the nine-tailed fox emperor's temperament changed greatly. His licentious personality was restrained, and he unleashed his terrifying talent. His cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and not long after, he replaced the previous one and became the new nine-tailed fox emperor. The identity of that young girl was also on the verge of being revealed. Melodramatic. How melodramatic! When Tianyong and the others heard this story from Purple Heavenly King, these 2 words echoed in their minds. A prince falling in love with Cinderella, or something like that. This kind of fairy tale had been passed down for tens of thousands of years until now. In the end, how many of them had actually come true? In the end, the prince did not fall in love with Cinderella, but with a peerless almighty who could destroy the heavens and split the earth with a raise of her hand. This is the story that Father told us. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Purple Sky King shrugged and said with an expression of resignation. Hearing that, Tianyong was also speechless. He turned to Ling Yuhan and asked, Yuhan, what do you think? Hearing that, Ling Yuhan came to her senses and released her nine-tailed lunar fox, martial soul. A pure moon and 9 snow-white foxtails appeared on her body. A surge of bloodline power also slowly spread out. Sensing this surge of bloodline power, Purple Heavenly King and Z Wangtian's expressions changed drastically. They looked at Ling Yuhan in disbelief. This is the bloodline of the gods. Plop. The 2 prodigies of the nine-tailed fox clan immediately knelt down. At this moment, Ling Yuhan's eyes were a little dazed as she spoke. I don't know if what they said is true or false, but I can sense that their bodies do indeed have the same bloodline as mine. Chapter 695. Bloodline of the same origin. Tianyang's expression changed when he heard that. Bloodline of the same origin. In other words, there must be an overlap of parents between the two parties. Looking at the situation, these two idiots with the surname Z had the same bloodline as Ling Yuhan. Didn't it mean that these two guys were really Ling Yuhan's brothers? Was the Demon King really Ling Yuhan's father? Although he had already guessed it, Tianyang couldn't help but curse in his heart when he found out about this situation. The father was overbearing, the son was an idiot, and the daughter was so bright and smart. What kind of people were they? No, these guys didn't seem to be humans. That's right. Sister, hurry up and ask your master to let go. I beg you. Hearing that, Zi Tianwang's eyes lit up. He didn't care about his noble status as the third on the demon race's prodigy roll and begged Ling Yuhan. There was nothing he could do about it. The sword emitting blood-red light was really too terrifying. If the Blood Sword Emperor hadn't been a reaching Heaven State expert, he wouldn't have been able to control his body to the extreme. Otherwise, who knew when this long sword would cut through Purple Sky King's neck? At that time, even if his soul was still there and he could be revived, it would still be considered as dying once. All right, Sanguinati, keep it. Don't scare him. Hearing that, Tianyang shrugged. His disciple's brother, what was he usually called? However, he was a junior after all. It wasn't good to torture him. At this moment, the dark spirit pearl that had been silent for countless years on Ling Yuhan's waist suddenly shone. In the next moment, Qian Han, whose strength had recovered to the peak of the third level of the Dao Fire Realm, appeared in front of everyone. Sanguinati was slightly stunned. Looking at Qian Han, who suddenly appeared, he looked as if he was facing a great enemy. However, when he sensed the aura that was at most at the peak of the third level of the Dao Fire Realm, he relaxed again. In the eyes of the Tianyang duo in the past, the peak of the third firmament of the Dao Fire Realm was a high and mighty existence that they could only look up to. Now, even if Tianyang and Qianhan stood there and let Qianhan hit them, Qianhan wouldn't be able to hurt them at all. Long time no see. Tianyang chuckled. You've been asleep for so long. What are you up to this time? If they want to go back, these two fellows do have the ability to do so. Tianyang laughed. Hearing this, Qianhan was stunned. Then he shook his head. Sir, I didn't come out this time just to let me go back. Furthermore, I want Her Highness Ling Yuhan to come as well. Qianhan said solemnly. Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly taken aback. Sanguinati's face also darkened. Zi Tianwang and Zi Wangtian's faces revealed a trace of excitement. As for Ling Yuhan, she was a little confused. The power of his bloodline was trembling nonstop, as if there was something in the distance. What did you say? Tianyang narrowed his eyes and looked at Qianhan. A dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. Although you've helped me a lot, that's not a reason for you to speak nonsense. Tell me the reason. Tianyang's tone became much colder. He looked at Qianhan with an extremely unfriendly gaze. The current him was no longer the weak him who could only rely on Qianhan's power. Tianyang was somewhat grateful to Qianhan, but if Qianhan didn't tell him the reason now, Tianyang might really attack him. After all, Ling Yuhan was Tianyang's biggest and deepest reverse scale. If this reverse scale was touched, even if the heavens were filled with gods, Tianyang would kill him. I naturally have my reasons for saying this. Qianhan saw a cold glint flash across Tianyang's eyes, and his heart trembled. I've been in a deep sleep all these years, but that doesn't mean that I've just woken up now. I've already woken up when Her Highness Ling Yuhan awakened her bloodline for the second time. As a member of the Nine-Tailed Fox clan, I also know what it means for Her Highness Ling Yuhan to awaken the Nine-Tailed Heavenly Moon Fox bloodline. Qianhan said. Tianyang's expression was cold. If you want to say that Yuhan can lead the Nine-Tailed Fox clan to prosperity, I advise you to keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, I can't guarantee where my sword will appear. Tianyang said coldly. Qianhan's heart trembled slightly when he heard this. The speech that he had prepared disappeared a little. The two nine-tailed fox princes, Purple Sky King and Purple Sky King, who had planned to help, were stunned. They didn't expect Tianyang to be so ruthless. He directly took drastic measures to deal with them and beat them until they were speechless. Not only for the nine-tailed fox clan, but also for Her Highness. It will be greatly beneficial for Her Highness to return, Qianhan said. Tianyang raised his eyebrows when he heard this. The two nine-tailed foxes were also stunned. The nine-tailed heavenly moon fox has the bloodline of a deity, so she must have inherited her memories. Her Highness Ling Yuhan should have told you about this. However, my lord, have you considered that you have rich martial arts experience? As long as you have martial arts techniques in your head, it will be easy for you to cultivate them. As for Her Highness Yuhan, she is a young lady who only has a dozen years of martial arts experience in this lifetime. If she doesn't have anyone to guide her, it will be extremely difficult for her to cultivate a martial arts technique or even digest the increase in strength brought about by the second awakening of her bloodline. I think that as a human lord, no matter how strong his cultivation is or how high his realm is, he won't know how to use the martial arts techniques of the demon clan. Qianhan analyzed calmly. Ziwang Tian and Zi Tianwang were stunned when they heard this. Tianyang also fell silent. If this had been in the past, before Ling Yuhan's bloodline had undergone the second awakening, Tianyang, as her master, could easily guide her. However, after the second awakening, even with Tianyang's experience, he wouldn't be able to understand the inheritance in Ling Yuhan's memories without coming into contact with her for a few days, let alone guide her. Although Ling Yuhan didn't say anything, was this really suitable? Moreover, I think that the ancestral fox spirit of the nine-tailed fox clan should still be around. Qianhan smiled. Tianyang's eyes narrowed when he heard this. You mean the ancestral fox spirit? The nine-tailed fox clan has been passed down since ancient times. As long as one is in the heavenly ascension realm, they will offer a part of their soul to enter. The ancestral fox spirit is equivalent to the inheritance of the entire nine-tailed fox clan. That's right. This time, it wasn't Qianhan who spoke. It was Zi Tianwang. I can guarantee that if Ling Yuhan returns to the nine-tailed fox clan, she will definitely have a share of the ancestral fox spirit. The increase in Ling Yuhan's strength should also be something that you want to see. Zi Tianwang said. Tianyang's expression changed completely when he heard this. Then, he smiled and patted Ling Yuhan's shoulder. Ling Yuhan suddenly came to her senses. Her eyes filled with tears. Master, you don't have to say any more. I've lived for so many years. This is the first time I've been persuaded by someone. Tianyang smiled softly. He felt relieved and looked at Zi Tianwang and Zi Wang Tian with shining eyes. As far as I know, the inheritance of the ancestral fox spirit of the nine-tailed fox clan will be passed down in a year. A year? I'm only giving the nine-tailed fox clan a year. After a year, I will definitely go to the nine-tailed fox clan and take Yuhan away. If I find out that Yuhan has been wronged in the slightest in this year, then Tianyang said calmly. A murderous intent slowly emerged in his tone. The great void sword embryo in his hand released a dazzling light that could almost pierce the sky. Chapter 696. Beware of the nine-tailed fox clan. Blood will flow like a river. As he said that, a blood-red light flashed across Tianyang's eyes. That surging murderous intent was not concealed at all. It directly charged into the eyes of the two nine-tailed fox clan geniuses. Instantly, in their eyes, Tianyang was no longer an 18-year-old youth. Instead, he was an indomitable demon god. It was hard for anyone to doubt him. Zi Tianwang was the first to react. Just as he was about to roar, Zi Tianwang patted his shoulder. Looking at Tianyang, Zi Tianwang said solemnly, "If we still have a breath left, we will not let anyone hurt Ling Yuhan at all. If you want to kill her, you have to step over our dead bodies," Zi Tianwang said. Hearing that, Tianyang narrowed his eyes. A sharp light shot out as if he wanted to see through Zi Tianwang's inner world. Then, Tianyang closed his eyes and nodded. "Sure, Master, I don't want to go. At that moment, Ling Yuhan said loudly, "So what if the Demon King is my father? It was the soaring cloud sect that raised me all these years. It was Master who made me stronger. If I have to abandon Master because of the bloodline, then I don't want this bloodline." Ling Yuhan's face was resolute. Blood gathered in her hand. It was the origin of the nine-tailed moon fox's bloodline. Seeing that, Tianyang's expression changed. At that moment, Qianhan said, "Your Highness Ling Yuhan, I wonder what you can do now that your cultivation is one level higher than Master's." Hearing that, Ling Yuhan was stunned. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He was about to interrupt Qianhan. "Master, you don't have to interrupt. If you don't say it, then I will. Otherwise, your Highness Ling Yuhan will definitely not return to the nine-tailed fox clan in peace," Qianhan said. Although she was only at the peak of the third level of the Dao Fire Realm, she had lived for hundreds of years and had witnessed the rise and fall of the nine-tailed fox clan. In terms of worldly wisdom, Tianyang might not be better than her. On the surface, your Highness Yuhan's cultivation is at the 7th level of the Sea of Soul Realm. Your battle strength is definitely not weak and can be of great help to Master. But in reality, His Highness only has cultivation and powerful martial skills, but he is unable to use them. There is no difference between before and after his awakening. If this goes on, to put it bluntly, His Highness will only be a burden in the end. Enough! Tianyang's expression changed as he shouted furiously. However, Ling Yuhan's expression changed completely. Tianyang had always been protective of her and did not say anything. Therefore, although she had a feeling, she was not very clear about it. Now, Qianhan's words were like piercing through the last layer of window paper, allowing Ling Yuhan to completely understand. Even if she was already at the 7th level of the Sea of Soul Realm, she would still be a burden to Tianyang. Qianhan is right. Master, I understand. A glint flashed across Ling Yuhan's eyes. He raised his head and looked straight at the sun. An indescribable radiance flashed across his eyes. I still have to return to the nine-tailed fox clan. Otherwise, as a disciple, wouldn't it be useless to stay by Master's side? My current strength is enough to finish my apprenticeship, right? Ling Yuhan Moon smiled. Tianyang Moon was stunned. At this moment, Ziwang Tian and Zitian Wang also stood up. Looking at this unfamiliar yet familiar sister, Zitian Wang and Zitian Wang smiled. "Then, please forgive us." Tianyang could not help but fall silent when he heard this. He was naturally unwilling to let Ling Yuhan leave just like that. Who knew if the Purple Sky King and the Purple King Heaven really had such great power? But logically speaking, according to the Devil Emperor, the invasion of the Devil race was imminent. If Ling Yuhan wanted to preserve his life in this chaotic world, or even go into battle to kill the enemy, strength was a must. "All right," Tianyang Moon said solemnly. "Don't worry, Sword King. We will definitely protect Sister well," Zitian Wang Moon said. Then, the three of them rose into the air. Zitian Wang Moon waved his hand and opened his spatial bag. A huge spaceship appeared in front of them. The three of them flew towards the spaceship. Just as they were about to step into the spaceship, Ling Yuhan Moon suddenly turned her head. Her lips moved as she sent a voice transmission to Tianyang. Hearing that, Tianyang's expression changed. His originally heavy expression softened, and he smiled faintly. "We'll meet again in a year." Ling Yuhan Moon left. This was something that Sanguinati Moon and the others did not expect. With Tianyang's overwhelming battle prowess that suppressed Purple Heavenly King and Purple King Heaven, if he did not want Ling Yuhan to leave, Purple Heavenly King would definitely not be able to take Ling Yuhan away no matter how hard he tried. In Heaven Continent, there was no one who could snatch someone away from Tianyang. "All right, stop looking. That's my disciple," Tianyang Moon suddenly said. Sanguinati Moon retracted his gaze and opened his mouth. "My lord, do you believe that I will eat those golden infant soul fruits right now, if you mention it again?" Tianyang Moon said indifferently. Sanguinati Moon immediately shut his mouth. How could he guess the Sword Emperor's thoughts? Moreover, He needed the help of those golden infant soul fruits if he wanted to recover his peak strength and reconstruct his human form. He would cry himself to death if he lost them with just one sentence. "All right, Long Taiji Moon, you guys can come out now," Tianyong Moon said indifferently. Hearing this, a few people jumped out from the ruins. The leader was naturally the East Sea Dragon Palace's Dragon Prince, Long Taiji. Next was Ao Ling. Tianyong did not recognize the rest. "That, my lord, Long Taiji Moon said awkwardly. Before he could finish, he felt a gaze that could cut through his soul. Long Taiji Moon was so frightened that he immediately shut his mouth. "Didn't you tell me that your East Sea Dragon Palace's residence was demolished? Then you can go and fulfill your promise now," Tianyong Moon said indifferently. Long Taiji Moon cursed silently. "Are you sure you're not in a bad mood after your disciple left and went to the East Sea Dragon Palace to change your mood?" However, although he thought so, Long Taiji Moon did not dare to say it out loud. If Tianyong Moon was angry and did not make a move, wouldn't his residence still be demolished? Where'd he put his face then? That old Dragon King would definitely chop him to death. "Oh, right. Second uncle, you can come out now." At this moment, Long Taiji Moon suddenly said to the side. Hearing this, Tianyong Moon raised his brows and turned his head to look. He saw that when the martial arts competition ended, the dragon-horned middle-aged man who was chatting with the 9 Heaven Palaces people stuck his head out and looked around. Looking at Tianyong, his face was full of fear. Seeing this, Tianyong Moon was speechless. Long Taiji Moon was also helpless. As a peak expert of the East Sea Dragon Palace, could you pay attention to your image? In any case, you're a peak spirit king at the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. That, nephew, you have to promise that Lord Sword King won't directly cut me down. Chapter 697. A golden ray of light streaked across the sky, and a dragon's roar could be faintly heard. Within that golden ray of light, TSK, this world's 9th layer Sea of Soul Realm is the real 9th layer Sea of Soul Realm. Rich indeed, they even have a high-grade flying boat. Sanguinati looked at the surroundings and praised. A high-grade flying boat, if placed 10,000 years ago, was a divine item that could only be encountered by luck. Back then, the Bloodsword ruler was considered lucky to have a long sword, which was a spirit tool at the peak of middle grade. Ordinary rulers were only at this level. Generally, great emperors would only be able to use high-grade spirit artifacts. As for the Sky Pole Sword Emperor, he would only be able to use peak-grade spirit artifacts. In the end, 10,000 years later, even a 9th layer Sea of Soul Realm cultivator could use a high-grade spirit weapon. Sanguinati was immediately envious. After the great destruction of civilization, although martial Dao declined, those treasures and inheritances didn't disappear. Therefore, the cultivators 10,000 years later, even if they were in the body refining realm, would be considered poor if they didn't have a low-grade artifact. Those who still use steel swords are the poorest of the poor. Tianyong muttered to himself. However, Long Taiji and Sanguinati were staring at each other in confusion. Tianyong's group, excluding the East Sea Dragon Palace team that they didn't know, only Tianyong, Sanguinati, and Long Taiji were left in Tianyong's group. Yu Jianshun returned to the Flying Sword sect after the martial arts competition and probably wouldn't return in a short time. Moreover, the East Sea Dragon Palace wasn't a place that just anyone could enter. Ling Yuhan, there was no need to talk about her. If it had been in the past, Tianyong's words would have been met with Ling Yuhan's response. But now, we're here. However, the awkwardness in the flying boat didn't last for long. Following Long Taiji's somewhat excited shout, a majestic city appeared before everyone's eyes. That is the Dragon Emperor's city. It was the only way to enter the East Sea Dragon Palace. If we go to the East Sea Dragon Palace now, we will have to pass by the Dragon Emperor's city, Long Taiji said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyong raised his eyebrows and looked carefully. Dragon Emperor's city was a majestic name. It was far more powerful than ordinary cities. It was not inferior to Sun Moon City at all. Moreover, compared to other cities, the scale of the Dragon Emperor city was much bigger. Even the Sun Moon City might not be comparable to the Dragon Emperor city. The entire Dragon Emperor city was like a huge island. It was close to the mainland, but they were separated from each other. With Qianyang's powerful eyesight, he could see all kinds of races in the Dragon Emperor city at first glance. There were humans, sea tribes, demon tribes, ghost tribes, and so on. It could be said that in the entire Heaven continent, the Dragon Emperor city had all the common races that could be found. The Dragon Emperor city was the first land that the first Dragon Emperor set foot on in the ancient times. Although it was just an island, it had a great significance. Later, the dragon tribe started to build a stronghold on the island. Gradually, after a long period of development, the Dragon Emperor city finally occupied the entire island. The sea tribes, demon tribes, and ghost tribes that you saw were all the people of the dragon tribe in the past. Long Taiji said excitedly. When he thought of the first dragon emperor, he could not help but feel his blood boiling. The dragon tribe had not had a dragon emperor for many years. 10,000 years ago, the East Sea Dragon Sage, who was known as the Dragon Emperor without a title, was only a dragon sage. He was at the same level as Sword Sage Zhou Xing. He was inferior to a great emperor. 10,000 years later, martial arts had declined. It was extremely difficult to give birth to a heaven-reaching realm elite, let alone a dragon emperor. Now, the leader of the East Sea Dragon Palace, who was also the ruler of the entire East Sea Dragon Palace, the East Sea Dragon King, was only at LV 5 or 6 of the heaven-reaching realm. He was equivalent to Sanguinati 10,000 years ago, or even weaker. It was difficult to even become an emperor, let alone a monarch. Let's go. If we want to enter the East Sea Dragon Palace, we have to enter the city. There are a lot of fun things in the Dragon Emperor city. Long Taiji said with a smile. He let the middle-aged man with dragon horns, who was at LV9C of Soul Realm, descend the flying boat. Tianyang, Sanguinati, and Long Taiji arrived at the Dragon Emperor city. In fact, with Long Taiji's identity, he did not need to go through the Dragon Emperor city's transmission stronghold. Even if he swam to the West Sea, as long as he dived his head into the sea, he could find the East Sea Dragon Palace and enter. However, Long Taiji had also guessed Tianyang's intention to change his mood. He took the initiative to take a stroll in the Dragon Emperor city. In any case, to him, the Dragon Emperor city was indeed like his backyard. Let's go, Long Taiji said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged his shoulders indifferently and followed into the city. The Dragon Emperor city was huge and majestic. At the same time, it was filled with the heaven and earth's spirit chi. It was even stronger than the Earth Emperor city. After all, the ocean was boundless. Although the center of the world was the central region, the heaven and earth spirit chi in the ocean was not inferior to the central region at all. After all, it was too big. Therefore, the Dragon Emperor city that gathered most of the heaven and earth spirit chi in the East Sea naturally became a powerful city that was not inferior to a first-rate force. You're a lot more normal now that you're here. Tianyang watched as a translucent ghost brushed past them and said to Sanguinati with a smile. Indeed, thousands of races gathered in the Dragon Emperor city. Even Long Taiji did not know how many races there were in the Dragon Emperor city. Although Sanguinati's skeleton looked terrifying, it was nothing in the Dragon Emperor city that was filled with ghosts. What else could Sanguinati say? That he was not the same as the ghost race. Even a ghost would not believe that. Although the Dragon Emperor city has been developed by the dragon race since ancient times, there are many opportunities in the Dragon Emperor city itself. For example, the famous Sky Martial Sword Pavilion. It is said that it was a pavilion left behind by the Sky Martial Sword Emperor in ancient times. There are countless swords inside. Ordinary people would be injured by the sharpness of those swords when they enter. However, for sword cultivators is the best place for cultivation. Long Taiji said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Sky Martial Sword Emperor? It was said that he was a figure from the same era as the Great Void Emperor. However, the Great Void Emperor became famous earlier, and his strength was not as strong as the Sky Martial Sword Emperor. Your Excellency's title is only one word away from the Sky Martial Sword Emperor. If you go in, you might have some opportunities, Long Taiji said with a smile. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head. For him, who had heaven-defying, innate, terminated meridians, everyone's Tao of cultivation would have a certain effect. His martial Tao was destined to gather the strong points of many sects and fuse them into one to become the strongest Tao. Moreover, the Dragon Emperor city of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace is also peaceful. All kinds of races live in harmony. There has never been any cases of the strong bullying the weak, Long Taiji said boastfully. Bang! A horrifying loud sound was heard. In the small alley in front of the three of them, a figure flew out. Blood spurted out from his mouth, and he fell heavily on the ground. Who knew how many of his ribs were broken? A cultivator at the third heaven of Tao Fire Realm was severely injured in an instant. Chapter 698. He was heavily injured in an instant. Long Taiji's face immediately stiffened when he saw the large mouthful of blood spurting out of the young man's mouth and the ground that was dyed red. He had just been speaking with assurance, almost bragging about Dragon Emperor City to be a paradise on earth. Although it was impossible, there was no need to slap him in the face right after he finished speaking. However, the youth who was heavily injured seemed to have not noticed the existence of Tianyang and the other two. His eyes were blood red as he looked at the people in the small alley in front of him. Give up, all of you. I, Jiang Han, will never give my sister to you beasts even if I die. The youth roared with blood-red eyes. Hearing this, before Tianyang and the other two could speak, a sneer was heard. Beasts! A handsome man in a golden robe walked out and looked down at the youth condescendingly. On his body, a first-layer sea of Soul Realm true Yuan mixed with Demon Clan's aura was slowly released. You actually dare to call us beasts in front of us, Great Rock Clan. You lowly human, you're really not afraid of death, the golden-robed man mocked. Hearing this, the youth named Jiang Han's face did not change. His heart was filled with anger, and he ignored the heavy injuries on his body and became afraid. Looking at the golden-robed man's lustful smile, Jiang Han mocked. You're just a group of mixed-haired birds, wearing gold. You really think your mixed-haired bird is a golden-winged great rock? Lowly human? It's the lowly human that you speak of that replaced you Demon Clan and ruled this world. Hearing this, the golden-robed man's face immediately darkened. His first-layer sea of Soul Realm true Yuan suddenly condensed. In the next moment, it turned into a huge golden wave of fire and violently shot out. Humph! After I kill you and extract your soul, I'll still be able to find where Jiang Shuer is. At that time, I'll definitely make that bitch serve under my feet for 3 days and 3 nights, and then become a slave for life. The golden-robed man screamed. In the next moment, the terrifying wave of fire cut through the space between the two, carrying a blazing heat as it charged towards Jiang Han. At this moment, a cold snort came from his side. How dare you bully people in Dragon Emperor City? Since when did the Great Rock Clan's mixed-haired birds dare to be so arrogant? Immediately after, a majestic dragon force was released and easily crushed the golden fire wave into pieces. Seeing this, the golden-robed man's expression changed. He hurriedly turned his head with a ferocious and furious expression on his face. Who is it? Jin Zhan's matter. Aren't you afraid of death? The golden-robed man, Jin Zhan, roared. Then, he turned to look at Tianyang and the other two. The one who attacked was naturally the host of the Dragon Emperor City, the Dragon Prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace. In the entire East Sea, his status was second only to the old Dragon King, Long Taiji. Long Taiji's face was gloomy as he looked at Jin Zhan. Since when was it the turn of this group of birds to behave atrociously in Dragon Emperor City? Did they really think that this wasn't the core area of Dragon Emperor City, and that this group of demon clans could do whatever they wanted? So it's a kid with some strength. Looks like he's only a few decades old. No wonder he's so hot-blooded and wants to help when he sees injustice. Seeing Long Taiji and Tianyang's slightly immature faces, the golden-robed man, Jin Zhan, immediately smiled disdainfully. Behind them was only a skeleton sanguinati. Naturally, He would treat him as a ghost or a puppet. "You too go," Jean-Jean shouted. Hearing this, the two middle-aged men beside him, who were also wearing golden robes but didn't have the great rock pattern on their robes, immediately nodded. Yes. In the next moment, the two middle-aged men released their peak 4th level C of Soul Realm cultivation and charged towards Tianyang's group. Remember, capture them alive. They actually dared to ruin my, Jean-Jean's matter. I'll definitely make them beg for death. Jean-Jean sneered. Then he stood there quietly with a disdainful smile on his face, as if he wanted to see Tianyang's group being instantly subdued by his bodyguards. Because among Tianyang's group, even the weakest Tianyang's cultivation base and soul power surpassed theirs. They simply couldn't see through Tianyang's group's cultivation base. Previously, Long Taiji's attack was too sudden, so they simply couldn't sense it. Therefore, they simply didn't know what kind of opponent they'd provoked. Two 4th level C of Soul Realm mixed-haired birds actually dared to make a move against this prince. Seeing this, Long Taiji sneered. He was extremely obedient in front of Tianyang. After all, Tianyang's strength and influence were much stronger than his. He was tired of living. Only then would he act cool in front of Tianji's Sword Emperor. However, this small rock race mixed-haired bird dared to act cool in front of him and wanted to make a move against him. Courting death. Dragon King Divine Fist. Long Taiji roared angrily. In the next moment, a huge dragon force condensed. The true dragon force surged out and turned into a fierce fist. Along with the dragon force, it charged towards the two fellows. Seeing this, the two middle-aged men's faces changed. Then, they snorted coldly. "You actually dared to make a move against young Master Jean-Jean. Earth-tier upper-grade martial skill, rock wings split the sky." The two middle-aged men roared in unison. Peak 4th level C of Soul Realm demonic power erupted. Instantly, brown-yellow feathers appeared on their hands. The edges also became incomparably sharp. In the next moment, the two middle-aged men attacked one after another. The sharp wings almost cut through the space. Bang! Dragon King Divine Fist and rock wings split the sky, fiercely collided. Even a space like Dragon Emperor City started to tremble slightly. As for Jiang Han, who was heavily injured by Jean-Jean's pursuit, he was dumbstruck at the scene before him. The onlooker sees everything clearly. Due to Jean-Jean's anger, he didn't see who attacked at all. He also didn't have the intelligence to analyze. However, Jiang Han, who was standing at the side, saw everything clearly. Long Taiji, who attacked just now, was clearly a dragon through and through. How did the dragon race and the demon race start fighting? Jiang Han said, with a stupefied expression. At this moment, two sounds of spitting blood rang out almost at the same time. Jiang Han hurriedly turned his head to look, only to see those two peak 4th level C of Soul Realm middle-aged men spat out blood and were blasted away like cannonballs. Two mixed-haired birds among mixed-haired birds still dared to attack in Dragon Emperor City, simply courting death. Long Taiji sneered and said. Soon after, Long Taiji turned his head and looked at Tianyang. He smiled and said, "Sir, I did okay, right?" "Not bad." Tianyang narrowed his eyes and looked at the two middle-aged men who were still hanging on to their last breath in the distance, and said indifferently. Seeing this, whether it was Jiang Han or Jean-Jean, they both opened their eyes wide. This young man who attacked like a thunderbolt and had an incomparably domineering aura was actually facing a youngster. Chapter 699. You, who are you? Jean-Jean's entire body trembled as he looked at Long Taiji and Tianyang. He couldn't imagine how his two invincible bodyguards would be defeated so easily by Long Taiji. 4th level C of Soul Realm wasn't a cabbage. Even in a city like Dragon Emperor City, it was extremely difficult for a C of Soul Realm expert to appear. Only in the most central region of Dragon Emperor City would one be able to see C of Soul Realm experts in large numbers. However, most of them were below Spirit King. In other places, a C of Soul Realm expert could be considered a tyrant, not to mention two peak 4th level C of Soul Realm experts who were extremely close to Spirit King. Previously, Tianyang could casually run into Sea of Soul Realm experts because of the martial arts competition. In Heaven Continent, the density of Sea of Soul Realm experts wasn't that high. Me? At this moment, Long Taiji also turned his head and looked at Jin Zhan with a faint smile. Are you sure you want to know my name? As he spoke, Long Taiji took a few steps toward Jin Zhan. Jin Zhan's expression changed greatly. As Long Taiji took a few steps forward, he also took a few steps back. As he retreated, he said with a trembling voice, You can't attack me. I'm the young master of the rock race, the son of the king of the rock race. If you attack me, the rock race won't let you off. Jin Zhan roared. Hearing this, Long Taiji raised his brows. A mere second-rate demon race isn't worth me stopping. Long Taiji naturally knew about the rock race. After all, the dragon race was a branch of the demon race. Knowing the situation of the demon race like the back of one's hand was a compulsory course for the dragon prince. The rock race was indeed, just as he said, it was only a second-rate demon race. The strongest expert was only a 9th-level Sea of Soul Realm Spirit King. Disregarding everything else, Long Taiji was confident that he could fight the Rock King for 300 rounds. Naturally, he wasn't afraid of the rock race. Jin Zhan's expression changed. He did not expect that the other party would not place his race in his eyes at all. As waves of humiliation rose in his heart, fear also rose in his heart. Even if the Great Rock Clan was only a second-rate clan, it was still a second-rate clan among the demon clans. In terms of power, they were not much weaker than the second-rate forces of the human race. If one were to compare the demon race to the central region, then the Nine-Tailed Fox clan would be the only holy land of the martial way. King Chiyao's clan was in the heavenly Yin Mountain, an existence that was extremely close to being a holy land of the martial way. The forces behind King Chiyao's companions were similar to the Sun-Moon sect before Jun Tianyi had ascended to the heaven-reaching realm. The Rock Clan was a second-rate power. If it wasn't for the fact that the Star Swordplay sect didn't have a spiritual king expert and couldn't be considered a second-rate power, the Rock Clan would be inferior to the Star Swordplay sect. However, this was still a huge force. Jin Zhan panicked. He had been domineering in the Dragon Emperor's city for so long because he had never met any obstacles outside the core region. There were a bunch of hot-blooded youths who had nothing better to do. When he mentioned the Rock Clan, they all retreated. However, he didn't expect to meet such a strong person like Long Taiji today. That's right. At this moment, Jin Zhan's eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted at Long Taiji, I am a member of the Dragon Demon Alliance formed by the Dragon Prince. If you touch me, you will definitely suffer the Dragon Demon Alliance's thunderous revenge. The Dragon Demon Alliance is formed by the Dragon Prince. It has gathered almost all the prodigies of the Demon Clan and the Dragon Clan. If you offend him, you will definitely beg for death. Jin Zhan laughed loudly. Hearing this, Long Taiji was dumbfounded. Dragon Prince? Dragon Demon Alliance? What was that? No matter if it was before, during, or after the Martial Way Convention, he had never done such a thing. Are you sure you're talking about the Dragon Prince of the East Sea Dragon Palace, Long Taiji? Long Taiji looked at Jin Zhan with a strange expression and said. Hearing that, Jin Zhan immediately thought that Long Taiji was afraid. He sneered in his heart and threatened, Why? Are you afraid? Although the leader of the Dragon Demon Alliance is still only the second prince of the Dragon Clan. However, that idiot Long Taiji couldn't even get first place in a Martial Way Convention and actually has to follow a human trash. He has long embarrassed the Dragon Clan and the Demon Clan. Only the second prince of the Dragon Clan, His Highness Long Lingyu, is worthy of being the true Dragon Prince. Jin Zhan roared fanatically. Hearing that, Tianyang's lips curled into a strange smile, while Long Taiji's expression gradually darkened. Jin Zhan's words were not long, but the amount of information contained in them was simply explosive. His second brother, the second prince of the Dragon Clan, Long Lingyu, actually formed an alliance of the Demon Clan and Dragon Clan prodigies to oppose him, seize the position of Crown Prince. If that's the case, There's no use keeping you. Long Taiji's expression suddenly darkened to the extreme. Looking at Jin Zhan in front of him, the power of the true dragon gathered in his hand. Using his palm as a knife, a surging killing intent was released. That powerful to the extreme, terrifying killing intent almost froze Jin Zhan's entire person. Jin Zhan opened his mouth wide, as if he did not understand why Long Taiji would change so much one after another. However, there was no time for him to think about it. Swoosh! A clean sound rang out. Jin Zhan's neck was broken, and a pillar of blood spurted out. Jin Zhan was dead. You actually... In the distance, the two middle-aged men who were sent flying immediately widened their eyes and looked at Long Taiji in disbelief. Then, one of them roared and charged forward. "How dare you kill the young master? Die!" With a loud roar, the middle-aged man transformed into his original form, a huge brownish-yellow bird, and appeared on the road. Then, he flew over at an extreme speed. Courting death, Tianyang said to himself. This guy obviously did not know what it meant to judge the situation and size up the situation. He could clearly see Long Taiji's identity, but he was still so arrogant, simply idiot. Boom! Long Taiji punched out and directly blasted the middle-aged man's body. His eyes were blood red as he looked at the flying rock. A furious killing intent flashed across his eyes. However, Tianyang pressed on his shoulder. "Calm down," Tianyang said indifferently, looking at the rock that was gradually flying away. "He won't be able to live for long." Hearing this, Long Taiji was stunned and turned to look at Tianyang. Heavenly Sun smiled faintly as a wisp of annihilating heavenly fire quietly rose from his hand. 10 minutes later, the raging fire will burn him. If nothing goes wrong, it's enough for him to spread the news. At that time, everyone will know who is the real Dragon Prince.